Late Night with Katherine Boyle on Talk Radio.
You're looking for trouble? You've come to the right place. You're looking for trouble? Just look right in my face. I was born standing up and talking back. My daddy was a piece of railroad track because I'm evil. My middle name is Misery. Yes, I am evil. So don't you mess around with me. I don't wipe my bottom when I go to the loo. I'm rude to policemen and I pick my nose too. There's no stopping me. I'm bloody mad. I smoke marijuana and I don't go to lectures because I'm evil. My middle name is Jeremy. Yes, I'm evil. So don't you mess around with me. Mess around, everybody. I live with my mum, and she gets on my wick. And when I'm told off, I'm deliberately sick. So look out, you squares. I'm an angry young man. I once showed my willy to Princess Yes, I am evil. So don't you mess round with me! Bloody hell!
You know who that is, don't you? That was Rik Mayall. I'm Katherine Boyle. I've got Mark Searby in the studio with me. Is it Searby or Searby?
Searby. But, you know, you pronounce it quite poshly, so I'll go with that. It's
I can't
fine.
help myself. I just am dead posh. Now, you've written a book about Rik Mayall.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you'd say, why Rik Mayall? But everyone loves Rik Mayall.
Yeah.
Why not Rik Mayall?
Yeah, this is the thing. And also, it's weird to say, but there's no other book out there about Rik Mayall apart from his autobiography. Now, obviously, for people who have read that autobiography, it's an incredible piece of work, but it's written in the Dr. Rik Mayall pan-global phenomenon, third-person perspective. I mean, it's a brilliant piece of work if you read it as a screenplay.
Right.
If you read it as an autobiography, it doesn't tell you anything. Like, everything in the entire world is down to Rik. Like, he just created the world, to be honest. And it's great. But I'm like, I want to read about how he got to how he was and his influences and all of the success and all of the failures as well. Because, there's things that didn't work for him as well. And I'm like, well, I want to read that book. Maybe I should just write that book.
So what, his book is more like him enjoying himself, talking about the man, the legend that he became?
It's not even that, to be honest with you. I mean, like there's breaks in the chapters where he's written a letter to, like, Thatcher or the Queen or just, random people. And then there's breaks in the chapters of photos of young ladies who are topless. Just for no reason. It just says bird topless or something. And you're like, I mean, this is exactly what you want from a Rik Mayall book. Mm-hmm. But for real truth, it's in there, dig it out. But if you just want a straight story, you're not going to get it in that. But it's a wonderful book. I mean, it's Rik through and through.
I'm going to have to read that. When after he died, a load of those letters that he wrote to people came out, didn't they? And some really lovely moments, I don't know, disguised with abuse. And I was talking to one of the producers, and he said, "Oh, I love Rik Mayall. My girlfriend had a mad crush on him, and she got a book signed by him, and he always signed it Love and Violence."
That's just one of the things that he would write. The thing is, he was very good with writing things like that. If you were a male, you would get roundly, we can't say the words on air at all, what he would write on there. But, you would get that and you'd go, yeah, that's absolutely Rik. And then if you were a female, you'd get something slightly naughty, something slightly perverted maybe. And to be honest with you, I imagine most females would be like, yeah, I'm okay with that, it's Rik. Because the thing is, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, but Rik was a very handsome man.
Yeah, very sexy, and it's not even about what he looked like.
No.
He had a charm.
Yeah, absolutely. I interviewed loads and loads of people for the book as well who worked with Rik, and one of them was Andy de la Tour, who went out on tour with him in the early 90s. And he said, when we were on tour, he said, obviously, I would do the first half of the stand-up comedy, and then Rik would come on and do the second half. He said, and afterwards there would always be like a gaggle of women at the stage door waiting. He said, and you always knew, he said, I would go out first. He said, then Rik would come out, and he said there was this 30-second moment where the women didn't recognise him because he'd been on stage pulling these faces, gurning and everything else like that, and flicking the V sign and whatever else, and then he would come out as this wonderfully, coiffed man, lovely, handsome and everything, and they'd go, well, that's not him. And then they'd look away and they go, hang on a second, that is him. Hang on a sec. So they'd all rush to the stage, but there was this 30-second gap where it was like, that's not Rik Mayall, but it was.
Because the person who came out, was sort of smaller in an acting sort of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the real Rik Mayall then? A more shy person, or...?
Only a few people really knew the real Rik Mayall. Family and those who got really close to him. I think that's the thing. There is, certainly with Rik, there was an on and off button. I think he was on as soon as he left the house, but that was no bad thing at all. The stories that I've been told, which some of them are in the book, happily to print them. Some of them I couldn't print at all, to be honest, were just really good, fun stories. Like he would be out with a few people and he'd be like, people would want his autograph and everything else like that. And he'd be with somebody trying to do some work. He'd go, oh, this is my lover, or this is my son, or something like that, just to make it really fun. Yeah. That was the thing. So I think he was always on, but he knew when to be off. That was the thing. Like, a lot of celebrities and a lot of famous people who are in the entertainment industry don't know how to switch off, which is an unfortunate thing. And Rik knew, I think he had that immediate switch, that when he was out in public, he was Rik Mayall. When he was at home, he was Richard Mayall.
Right.
And it's a big difference.
So when he was out in public, he was who the public expected to meet?
I guess so.
It was a bit of a defence thing because he was so outrageous, people would shrink back a little bit, maybe.
No, I think that was just Rik. I just think, the man oozed confidence. Yeah. That was the beauty about him. And I think that radiated to everybody else. Like, certainly, I think that people who grew up watching either The Young Ones or Bottom, I would imagine most of them turn around and say, my humour has been influenced by Rik more than anybody else, and probably my confidence as well. And I think that's such a great thing, is that you can look at somebody like Rik and never have met the man, yet understand how powerful it is to have that confidence and everything going through him. And, he wasn't afraid to stand up to everybody. I mean, there's photos online of him standing up to policemen, and you're like, only he could get away with that, really. And I think that's the beauty of Rik, and still is the beauty of Rik's legacy, that confidence still comes through. That any time you watch it, obviously you were playing that song earlier, which was very early in his career. It was him with Jules Holland, actually. Yeah. Even then, him stood on stage, Jules Holland, and I think Bill Wyman was playing. Bill Wyman was playing the guitar. Yeah. I encourage everybody to watch the clip on YouTube, because Bill Wyman stood there like, what's going off? I really don't know. I have no idea. And yet Rik is like, you're on stage with me.
Yeah, and he loves it. And that last part of the song, he's stretching it out and enjoying himself. He's not hurrying up. He's not going to make way for the next person. This is his moment. You can see him basking in it.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Glorious.
Yeah, absolutely. He knew how to work a stage. He knew how to work a crowd. He knew how to work an individual as well.
And a camera. That thing that came out, and it was passed around a lot again at the time of his death, where I think he was at like a wedding or some sort of function, and a camera had found his face in a crowd, and he realised he's being watched. He just flirts with the camera outrageously.
Yeah.
But it's gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. He just knew how to make everybody laugh. He knew when the camera was on him. He knew where to stand, what to do as well. However, interestingly, when he was making Bottom, he was always very nervous about, was he at his best? Right. Was he always at his best? I think because Bottom really was his and Aid's big project, really, because The Young Ones was obviously Lisa Mayer and Ben Elton as well, and the guys who were acting in it as well, Nigel Planer, Christopher Ryan, Alexei Sale. So it kind of had that group to hide behind a bit, but with Bottom...
But they loomed large, those two, didn't they, really?
Oh, absolutely. But I think Bottom, because it's their defining piece of work, and certainly I would say Rik's defining piece of work for my generation, I think he was very nervous about how it went down. You know, people said he would get really, really nervous before any take at all. And you think, that doesn't sound like him. But at the same time, I can understand, because he was a master of comedy. He wanted everything to be right. You know, he absolutely adored Laurel and Hardy. He loved Tony Hancock. He hated what I guess you would call end-of-peer comedians, you know, the my mother-in-law joke people. He hated them because it was all so safe and just easy. And he was an alternative comedian. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
And yet he broke through to the mainstream.
And what you're talking about there, with the traditional way of doing comedy and those references to Laurel and Hardy and Tony Hancock, the side eye to camera, those kind of those moments where it's just you and him. That's part of the allure, isn't it, for the viewer?
Yes, absolutely, because it feels like
he knows that I know.
Yeah, exactly, and it feels like he's only connecting with you as well. Like, because I mean, we were talking just off air before we started about the Bottom live tours.
Yes,
and granted, you're sat in the audience with about 2,000 or 3,000 other people, and yet there are moments in those shows, even when you rewatch it on DVD, where you think, I think he's only talking to me now. Yeah. And how does somebody manage to get that good at doing something where it feels like you're only talking to one person?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Very intimate. Do you think it... Well, we were talking about the females lining up afterwards, but it is a mostly male thing with Rik Mayall, isn't it?
What, in terms of fans?
And sort of reaching out and kind of identifying with that 14-year-old boy that you were. Yes,
I would say so. I mean, it's not a bad thing at all, but I think it is very much geared towards male slapstick, you know, frying pan in the face, that's funny, trapping the head in the fridge or something. You know, we don't advocate those at all, but they're very funny.
Yeah, and you know it's too big to be real as well, a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they always said it was like a real-life Tom and Jerry cartoon, and it is.
Yeah.
It really is. You know, they're an old married couple in Bottom, and it's Tom and Jerry. But I think it certainly chimes a lot more with males than females. I think also because there wasn't that many females who he worked with. You know, you think about the comic strip, and obviously worked with Dawn French and Jennifer Saunders, and there was a few others in there, but they weren't in all of those episodes at all. And you think back to the young ones, not that many females in their Bottom, not that many females either. Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, nothing like that either. I mean, really, when you think about it, probably the most work he ever did with a female all in one go was probably Drop Dead Fred. Yeah, with Phoebe Cates, which is a very different actress than what you would expect him to work with. But it worked. It didn't work at the time. I mean, it was... No,
I remember it coming out and people going, but it's a lot of people's favourite film.
Oh, here's the thing. I've been doing these Skype Q&As with the Alamo Drafthouse in the US over the past few weeks. They've been selling out. All of them have been selling out because people don't see this film on the big screen enough, and people absolutely adore this film now. I think because certainly when probably you and I were growing up and we first saw it, we were like, look, we love the slapstick, we love the fact that he's rubbing poo in the mum's carpet and saying nasty words to the mum. You're like, this is really good fun, this is. And then when you watch it again as an adult, you appreciate it for so many other things. It's now studied as the #1 film about mental health in California. Like, there's a whole research department that uses this film once a year to explain to people who can't understand what adults go through who have imaginary friends, and they show them Drop Dead Fred. And you see, this film lives on in such a big legacy. It really does.
He's so great, though. The face he had, the fact that he didn't have to do... It seemed like he wasn't doing very much, but in fact, he was working and manipulating the audience all the time.
Yeah.
I remember him primarily, I mean, we talk about, you know, Bottom and stuff, and I do feel like that was more kind of aimed at young daft lads when I was a young daft girl. Do you know what I mean? And I was into it too, but I wasn't a massively girly girl, do you know what I mean? But Lord Flashheart, that was purely for the ladies, surely, wasn't it?
That was pure sex, that was. And the thing is, to be honest with you, I think that was probably about 90 to 95% Rik.
It's hilarious.
To be honest, you know. And the thing is, as well, is think about how often he is in Blackadder.
Yeah.
At least 10 minutes per series. That's not a lot. Yet beyond, if somebody says to you Blackadder, you kind of instantly think about the relationship between Blackadder and Baldric. But then the next thing, in the next instance, you think of Lord Flashheart, whether it is in the trenches or whether it is, when he turns up and he's wearing a dress or something. And you're like, wow, this is... He just oozed sex.
Yeah.
And he knew it. And all of the lines, you were like, ooh, this is raunchy stuff for a British BBC comedy, which, is very funny comedy, don't get me wrong, but it felt, when you watch it back, it feels like Flashheart is completely in the wrong show, to be honest, but it works. That's the thing.
But that's part of the thing. It's interesting you say that was more him than you'd seen in other roles, because it did feel like he'd swoop in, take over, and everyone else kind of stood back because he didn't know what he was going to do. And that kind of unconventionality and the fact you didn't know what was going to happen next, that was part of his power, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the thing is, when he first appeared in Blackadder Series 2, it was, where he comes through the door, he bursts through the door and everything else like that. Nobody knew what he was going to do. Nobody knew at all. They basically, what had happened is they'd said something, and when they were practicing it before cameras were rolling, Rik was a little bit lethargic, and oh yeah, I'm getting it done. And it was Rik Mayall, but it wasn't the Rik Mayall, the action, the sex, the adventure and everything. And then when cameras were rolling, he did everything that you see in the actual show. And what you get is a natural reaction from, if you look at Stephen Fry in that clip, Stephen Fry stood back with a huge smile on his face because he already knows what Rik's like anyway, because he's worked with him. But there's others looking back, like Miranda Richardson, who's like, whoa, what are we experiencing here? And I think maybe Rowan Atkinson was possibly a little bit annoyed about it all.
Because it was his vehicle, but Flashheart just takes over. Yeah,
absolutely. There's no other way of doing it. I mean, I can't imagine another comedic actor playing that now at all. Or even if, how would you play it?
No,
beyond...
because for anyone else to do that, it would be too much.
Yeah, that's very true. But for Rik, it just felt normal.
Yeah.
It felt...
Here's Rik doing his thing. Everyone stand back and worship at the altar of madness. But there was a mad flash in his eye, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So people would kind of back up a little bit and let him do his thing.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly had those moments, flights of fancy, that sometimes didn't work. But it didn't matter because what came next did work. Yeah. That's the thing. Him and Aid, when they were writing, they very much liked the power of three joke. So, you would have one joke, then the next one would be bigger, and then the next one would be huge. So you would have ha 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 ha, and then you would have the huge belly laugh. However, there's times in Bottom, and I've written it in the book, where they go for 5 in a row. And I'm talking about like the moments where they're talking about pin the tail on a donkey, and they go, well, we haven't got a tail. They go, well, sellotape on a donkey. And they go, well, we haven't got a donkey. And it ends up being put a bit of sellotape on the fridge. But they go through this entire list, and each one gets bigger and bigger. And having spoken to loads and loads of people who worked with Rik and who wrote with Rik as well, he would always say, come on, there's got to be something funnier than what we've already got. Now, that's a man who knows comedy. Yeah. Really knows comedy.
That's someone who's secure. They also used to do this thing, which I think is brave and annoying and brilliant at the same time, which is do the joke, do it again till it stops being funny, then carry on doing it so it's annoying, then keep doing it till it becomes funny again. Yeah. Now that takes some confidence as well, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that, as we said, he oozed confidence. I spoke to Jeffrey Sachs, who was one of the directors for The New Statesman, and in the script for this episode of New Statesman, there was this scene, and it basically said there's one joke in this. It's probably about 3 minutes, this scene, if that. And there's one joke, a really big joke right at the end. And Rik turned around to him and he said, I think I can get 3 jokes on this. He said the first joke will be when Piers Fletcher Dervish says something, and he said, I'm not going to react instantly. I'm just going to stare out the window and my eyes are going to get wide. He said, that's laugh number 1. He said, then he'll say something else, and he said, I'll slowly turn. He said, that's laugh number 2. And he said, then the third one, I will do something massive. And he said, that is laugh number 3. And he got all of those in the first take.
Oh, God, I love him so much. We'll talk more in just a second. We'll take a quick break. If you want to give us a ring, you can do, because I know a lot of you worship at the altar of Rik Mayall, and I can't blame you for it. 0344 499 1000 is the number. That's 0344 499 1000. You're listening to Talk Radio. I'm Katherine Boyle.
Late Night with Katherine Boyle on Talk Radio.
It's just me and Mark Searby talking about Rik Mayall. He's written a new book called Comedy Genius, Rik Mayall. It's got a lovely picture of Rik on the front flicking the V's and a very lovely picture of him on the back all beardy with a fag on the go. Just this man, it would appear, can do no wrong. Everyone kind of loves Rik Mayall.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how Richard became Rik, because that's the title of one of your sections in here.
Yeah, it is. It's the early years chapter, basically, and how he was born in Machyntai, which is this lovely, quaint village in Essex, and then moved very early on over to Worcester. And basically, his parents were teachers, and his dad was a drama teacher, and that's how he started to get into it. So very early on, he was on stage singing Christmas carols. And the teacher turned around to him and said, listen, you can't sing. Stop drowning out everybody with your appalling voice.
Wow.
Just stand there and mime the words. However, even at the young age, he knew, hang on, they're not looking at me anymore. So what he did is he mimed the words really loud, so like overly elaborated with his mouth, then started to wiggle his bottom as well. And everybody was laughing at him. So the teacher took him off the stage and put him in the corner. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, he continued to wiggle his bottom in the corner. So people were just looking at him in the corner instead of what was going on stage. So, I mean, that was when he was in primary school. Mm-hmm. So you can only imagine how it got more and more, it's just in terms of going from Richard to Rik. But he was in his dad's production of Waiting for Godot, which he eventually went on to playing with Aid Edmondson in the West End. Mm-hmm. So he was in that. He'd done a couple of other plays. He'd done a Bertolt Brecht play as well. And then when he went to Manchester, which actually he failed most of his O-levels, and he got in through the clearing system rather than anything else. So he was quite lucky to go to Manchester. That's where he met Ben Elton and Lisa Mayer, but that was in the second year. The first year, he joined a comedy troupe called 20th Century Coyote, which was set up by his friend Lloyd Peters. Right. And it also had his other friends in there, Mark Jewison as well, Mike Redfern. And they just went off and started to do comedy. But at the time, it wasn't called stand-up comedy. No, stand-up comedy wasn't a word in the 70s. It was called cabaret or alternative cabaret. So they would go and do these strange, almost Monty Python-esque sketches at the Band on the Wall place in Manchester, but they would do it at lunchtimes because that's the only time they could get in there as well. And they were just doing it for the love of it. And slowly they developed their act. Now, the name changed from Richard to Rik. Now, we're not too sure when this happened or how it happened either. One of the stories is that he loved the cartoon stories of Eric the Viking.
Right.
The other one is that there was a young boy at school who was called Rik who seemed to be getting all the women. Now, I know which one I'm going to go with, to be honest with you. I really do. So by the time he was at Manchester, it had gone from Richard to Rik. And then him, and then later on in that same year, Aid Edmondson came into 20th Century Coyote. And I've got a wonderful quote in the book where Adrian Edmondson had told somebody years later that Rik was trying to get him into 20th Century Coyote. And he said, you know, you come down, you're really cool, you're a proper actor. Because Adrian Edmondson wanted to be a real actor. I mean, he is now, obviously, a very theatrical actor now. But he wanted to be a real actor. And Adrian Edmondson said to him, I'm only going to do it if you give me a contract. So Rik wrote a contract out there that said, it was something like, join 20th Century Coyote. I promise it will be horrible and all terrible and la-di-da, Rik Mayall. And he said, and he was true to his word. That's exactly how they started, 20th Century Coyote. They started to sort of pull away, and Lloyd Peters, who was the founder of 20th Century Coyote, went off to do some drama stuff. He did Boys in the Black stuff. So he was off doing drama with Mike Lee.
That's like heavy drama.
It's a big change as well, considering you're going from doing Monty Python style routines,
being daft in pubs,
to going and working with people like that. So he'd left, and Rik and Aid had said, do you mind if we keep the name 20th Century Coyote? And that's when it started. They started to develop. They went up to Edinburgh to do the Fringe, and one of the first plays was called Death on a Toilet, which was Edmondson stuck on the toilet and Rik playing God and talking to him.
Oh my God.
There was another one where it was called God's Testicles, where they both had bought sleeping bags and hung them in the rafters and sat in them and talked to each other as God's testicles.
Oh, right, okay. So they played right and left, basically. I
don't know who was right or who was left, I'll be honest.
Tell me about their friendship, their relationship. Is it as cosy and fun as it would appear from their work? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. when Rik died, Aid put out a statement that said, "Never did I laugh as much as I did working with Rik." And all of the people who I spoke to said them two together they'd be like their own little clique, in that they would just laugh at things that made no sense as well. But that came through in their writing, that all of the things that they found funny, they put into the script and hoped people would find funny and hoped everybody had got the same sense of humour. Fortunately, we had, and it worked brilliantly. But their relationship was, well, it was probably more than brothers, to be honest. And when you spend 30 odd years with each other, working day in, day out, and knowing each other's routines, there's nothing else there but to say they loved each other, really, when they were working.
That's the answer I hoped you'd give.
Yeah.
Because that comes through, doesn't it, in the work?
Yeah, absolutely.
And all the different permutations throughout, as they got older together, there can't have been rivalry or ego in that, because they seem to choose to be together a lot more than not.
They did up to a certain point, and then they split. Rik wanted to do some more Bottom, and Adrian Edmondson didn't. He decided to go off, and they didn't work together for a long, long time. And then just before the end, there was sort of a little bit of talk of doing bits and bobs, but yeah, they just basically stopped. The last time they were together on television was, you may remember this, Adrian Edmondson did, it was Comic Relief or Stand Up to Cancer or something, where they would get celebrities to do famous dance numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And he did Swan Lake, was it, or something? I'm trying to think now. And he had a tutu on and everything. And basically it finished with Rik dropping something on his head.
It's Let's Dance for Comic Relief.
Thank you.
Iain was on that episode.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, because he said that's the time he briefly met Rik Mayall.
There we go. So that was it. That was the last time they ever worked together.
Gosh, really? That was a while ago.
Yeah, and then they split, and, the comedy world lost a great team, to be honest. And they went off and did other bits. And the thing is, separately, they did really good other bits as well. And the tragedy of the fact that Rik is no longer alive with us is that we were getting a Rik Naissance with Man Down, and he was doing some of his best work. I mean, Man Down on TV, for those who haven't seen it, I actively encourage everybody to see it, because even though he's in it briefly, it's the old Rik jumping over a car boot, or, throwing water at Greg Davis.
Yeah, he's his dad in that, isn't he, or something?
Yeah, and, I mean, to be fair, he looks like him. And that was part of the casting, is that when Greg Davis was writing it, he's like, well, who do I get to play my dad? And everybody was saying, you've got to get Rik.
Now you're talking about it, it's the faces as well that he does.
Yeah. So, you had that, and then he had done some other bits as well, obviously, we may touch on it, the quad bike accident in 98. After that, he wasn't on TV for a long time, but he was doing podcasts, audio recordings, audio books, etc. And he'd done some great stuff in his later years. There's some stuff out there that I actively encourage people to listen to, like Cutie and the Sofa Guard is a really interesting piece that is basically the story of a man who buys a sofa, and it comes with an armed guard, and the armed guard only leaves when he thinks you understand how great the sofa is. And it's Rik. It's fantastic. And there's some twins in there called the Wisdom Twins, and he does both of them. They're absolutely brilliant. We can't play a clip at all. There's no way we can. And then
just imagine Rik Mayall.
Yes, please do. Yes, with lots of swear words in. And then he also did a great series called The Last Hurrah, which he always said was his last great piece of work, and he said it was for the fans. And basically it's the story of an immortal snowman reciting his life to a journalist while he sat in a gentleman's club swigging sherry and munching on prawns, and it's every bit as hilarious as you can imagine it to be.
Oh, you're making me want to have a proper Rik Mayall binge fest this weekend. I know what I'm going to be doing. I won't be going out. Cleo's on the phone. Hey, Cleo.
Hello.
What do you want to say?
I don't know if you mentioned while I've been sitting getting through, but when he did George's Marvellous Medicine on Jack Norrie.
God, that was a massive influence on me and my sister, and unfortunately for my mum's bathroom, we did reenact quite a lot of that. It was brilliant, wasn't he?
It was great.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, how did that come about, do you know?
Well, obviously, such a great storyteller that they just asked him to do it, and then it was the one that got the most complaints ever. And he wasn't invited back for years.
Wow,
Years
really?
and years, yeah. Because ultimately, it was encouraging children to do what you did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And parents were not happy with that. I mean, that's a really good moment there on Jack and Ori.
I think it made Jack and Ori. Jack and Ori was always boring, wasn't it, Cleo?
There was him, Cribbins, and what's his face? Kenneth Williams, who really, ever really just like remembered from watching that stuff, because it was just like, but when he did it, I think it was sort of after the last, was it the last series of the Young Ones or the between the two?
It was between the two.
Was it? Because I remember the first series of the Young Ones, I was too young to understand what was going on, but I knew it was funny. And I loved Viv, because as a kid, like, he's bashing things and going through walls and screaming and burning things down. So I loved him. But by the time the second series came around, I was like, I want to be Rik. Because Rik was just so funny. Because I've always been, like, obsessed with comedy and stuff, even as a little kid. And I was like, hey, just... So all through his career, I just got so bloody obsessed with him.
He's brilliant.
And the stuff in Bottom, it's like people just think of it as the no gag stuff, and but watching it, it's the stuff you're not focusing on, like in the background. There's always something going on. So if you watch it, it's like watching. There's elements of Python in there, but there's a lot of elements of Tony Hancock.
Yeah.
The despair and all that stuff, the depression stuff, and there's bits of Steptoe Son in there, and it's just amazingly written, and like people just think, oh, it's all fart jokes, knob gags, and it is to an extent.
Yeah.
But I think that's a front, because when you watch them acting together, whether Eddie's at the front of the screen doing his bit, you've got to watch Rik in the background acting, and vice versa. Every time Rik's in the foreground, you have to keep your eye on Eddie because he's hilarious. Just the reactions and the stupidness. So when he died, I was mortified.
Yeah.
And then...
I've spoken to a lot of people who said, I was excessively upset about someone I was never going to meet and never had met, but it was someone that was already part of your life.
It tore me to bits. And then Robin Williams died a couple of months later. I think that was it. I think Rik died in June. Robin Williams was the August of 2014, and I've told Kath this, but you don't know this. I died for a bit, and I was in a coma in September. So what I did when I came out, because I can't remember a thing about it, but when people said, what was it like? What was it like in the coma? I just said, just to have a jog. I said I used to knock around with Rik Mayall and Robin Williams just to have a laugh.
Oh, you wouldn't have come back. That was true.
But I was like, It was a tough summer for comedy fans, that.
Yeah. It was so sad. He was too young to go. Thanks, Cleo. Nice to speak to you. 03444991000. I mean, people have got a real place in their heart for Rik, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was hoping we weren't going to bring it up about him tragically passing, but we do have to touch on it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what was everybody noticed is the fact that Rik, an alternative comedian, was on every front page of a newspaper. He was the first thing on every news. An alternative comedian. Now think about it. When was the last time you had an alternative whatever on the front pages of when they died? The only other person I can think of would be David Bowie.
Yeah.
But Rik was on the front page of everything. It wasn't just one day either. It continued throughout the week. That there was eulogies there, and then it was here's the best bits and everything, and there was like 7-page spreads in papers of like here's the best bits. That's an alternative comedian, but that shows you how universally loved he was, how much of a pioneer he was, how much of a genius he was. You know, that's why I've called the book Comedy Genius, and that's why I argue in the book very early on why he really was a genius. You know, we all know that the word genius is overused these days. You hear it all the time. That's genius. That's genius. It's not genius. It's just funny. But Rik really was a genius. And that's why I've argued that he is in it. And I think when we all heard the news, I think we probably all did a double take of, no, he's already survived death once on the quad bike. You know, I mean, he was dead longer than Jesus. And obviously he told everybody about it. And that was the beauty of it, that why would you come knocking again?
Yeah. That was the thing. All his performances that I can think of, the ones that most people know, he's a force of nature. He's full of life. He's got too much life, if anything. He's bouncing off the walls and making everyone else stand back. So for him to go in his 50s, no one could believe it, could they?
No, absolutely not. That's the thing. And as I said, we were getting the Rik Naissance. We just had the first series of Man Down. Everybody was like, Rick's back. Rick's back, baby. And he's on Channel 4 as well, so he's got that slight edge to him as well.
How could he still be that cool in his 50s? He was, though.
It didn't matter. He was cool, whatever. That was the thing. He could have been cool. Well, I mean, he makes jokes of it all the time, even in all the shows that, he was just cool.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
That speech he gave as well. And it kind of went into the internet age and he went viral with a number of things. But the speech he gave at the university when he got
the doctorate. Yeah. One of the most emotional moments. And the thing is, everything he says there is absolutely brilliant. It's his mantras for life. And you just watch it and you go, he's absolutely bang on the money with every single thing that he's saying. And this is a man who never really, he didn't really work, he didn't work in a shop, he didn't work in a factory or anything else like that. He was just in entertainment. So he didn't really have the day-to-day grind of life. But with those mantras that he was talking about, you're like, he's talking to me. And I'm working the 9 to 5 here. But I get everything he's saying. He was such a smart man.
Tell you what, January being January and everyone being a bit glum, if you get time, Google it, dear listener, and have a listen to that, because there'll be something in it for you, I swear. And I'm definitely going to have a listen to that tonight as I'm going home. We were talking earlier off air about how it looked like he had a charmed life and it looked like everything was so effortless, but he had failed and he wasn't afraid to fail. He was willing to try things and keep trying, and the failures kind of made the successes, didn't they? Yeah,
I think so. There's a lot that I watched or listened to for the book where I'm like, this is not good. This is not good stuff at all. But that helped. That helped him a lot because he started to develop things and sort of kickbacks as well, where he was like, I'm not going to do anything else like that. It really didn't resonate.
What would you say were the main ones that sort of jumped out at you?
There's a film called Just for the Record, which is a British film that was all about the internal workings of the music industry. It should have been great. Yeah. It should have been really interesting. And it was terrible, absolutely horrendous. It really was. There's other bits out there as well. Like he'd done a couple of other early horror bits as well, and you kind of think Rik in a horror film doesn't really work. I have to say, actually, later on in life he did a film called Errors of the Human Body, which was a horror film. I think it was a German horror film, actually, and he's really good in it. Like, is
it playing it straight?
Playing it straight, yeah. And he's the scientist in it. But he's playing it straight and he's very good in that. But there were earlier things that really didn't work at all. There was some Hollywood movies that didn't work as well. He went to Canada to make a film with Leslie Nielsen that was absolutely terrible. Very early on in his career, he went off to Hollywood to make a film called Little Noises with Tatum O'Neal.
Right.
And it's just a strange piece of work. It's a very independent piece of work, but it doesn't work because Rik turns up and is sort of 50% of Rik Mayall, but he's opposite these other real established actors in Hollywood. And he's just like, this is night and day. This is not working at all. And I think possibly maybe that put him off seeking fame and fortune in the US for quite a bit, until Drop Dead Fred, really.
He should have been massive in Hollywood. Why not? Why didn't it kick in for him?
I just think he loved Britain. I just think he loved it here.
Because he could have been Ricky Gervais, couldn't he?
Yes, absolutely.
He could have taken over.
Yeah, and there were times where his agent was taking phone calls all over the place and he was just being offered telephone numbers. That's what I was told. Direct quote there as well. Telephone numbers. And yet, he didn't want to do it. He was very much a family man, though. He loved the family. Absolutely loved the family, and I can imagine that being away from the family for however long it is to film, it's going to be more than 8 weeks. You're probably talking about 3 months. It probably wouldn't sit right with him. It's not. I couldn't imagine him doing that. I couldn't imagine him being on the treadmill of big blockbuster films, even though he should be, as you rightly point out, he should have been massive, but it didn't really work out. But thankfully, now the cult that is Drop Dead Fred is bigger than ever.
It's just so tragic that it happens after the fact, though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the good thing is that before he died, I think it started to come back round again, and people were appreciating it for more than what they initially saw for it. But now it's so huge. It's so huge. I mean, I'd be interested to know, because you do a family film club, don't you, with your kids? I'd love to know what your kids think to that film.
I'm going to show it to them this weekend.
Because it would be such a different film in their eyes compared to yours now.
Because I showed them that song we played at the beginning that he did with Jules Holland, I Am Evil. My 8-year-old found it hilarious. I mean, just because of the mention of bums and not wiping your bum and all that stuff, it's the naughtiest thing she's ever seen. I think she'd love it.
Yeah.
I think she would love it. Or they'll be terrified by it because he's so out of control, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There are terrifying moments in that film.
It's proper jump scares and...
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, him sinking the houseboat in it is a huge moment, quite a scary moment. I think they'll love it, but I do think you're going to hear a lot more about Drop Dead Fred from your kids afterwards, which will be great.
Right.
But...
I'm glad you've said that, because I've been looking at something new to show them, because they will watch the same things over and over, which is why I started this film club thing. I was like, right, now we're going to watch something that I think will be good for you. And 9 times out of 10, they agree. Sometimes it doesn't really kick in. Some of the older films are a bit slow for my kids. I don't know.
The thing is with Drop Dead Fred is that Rik doesn't turn up for about 10 or 15 minutes.
Right.
And when you come at it as an adult, you're like, right, come on, where's Rik? Where's Rik? Phoebe Cates, no, get her off, get her off. We need more Rik, we need more Rik. And then he comes on like a whirlwind, and then he sort of disappears for a little bit.
Yeah.
And you go, where's Rik? Stop all this lovey-dovey nonsense with Phoebe Cates. We want Rik back on again. And then fortunately he turns up and hits her with a shovel or something. And you're like, okay, right, it's fine now. He's here all the way through. But there's moments in that film, like the moment where he slides under the mother's legs and looks up the dress and goes, ooh, cobwebs.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like you're thinking, okay, that's an interesting idea there, and it's funny in the moment, but when you watch it as an adult, you're like, ooh, this is a bit too far.
Still,
to be
my
honest.
kids would find it hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still hilarious, to be honest with you. I only saw it the other week, and I'm like, that's really funny. But part of my brain is going, oh, that's a bit naughty.
It doesn't
now.
stand up these
Yeah,
days.
that's not working, I got to say.
Let's take another little break, but I could talk about Rik Mayall all night, turns out. 0344 499 1000 is the phone number to call if you want to join in. But otherwise, we're just going to carry on. Loving this. This is Talk Radio. I'm Katherine Boyle. And Sam, you are about to press...
Late Night with Katherine Boyle on Talk Radio.
Just talking about the gorgeousness that is Rik Mayall, and talking about, you know, you hear the phrase, men want to be him, women want to be with him. I think some men wanted to be with him as well, to be honest. I don't blame them. Charm, charm, charm. And he was good friends with someone else who you could say that about, Alan Rickman.
Yes, he was good friends with him. Yeah, because they were in a film together.
Which film was that?
They were in what turned out to be, I'm trying to think of what it's called now, Churchill, The Hollywood Years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a decent film. It's okay. It's fine. You know,
Yeah.
it's worth seeking out. It's got Christian Slater in it, and it's quite fun. But yeah.
Oh yeah, doesn't Christian Slater play Churchill?
Is he? Yeah, Churchill, the younger years. So it's kind of like Maverick, basically. And then it's surrounded by this huge British cast, but it's directed by Peter Richardson, who did the Comic Strip Presents. Right. So essentially it is a Comic Strip Presents film. But not many people are aware of it.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's where they met. They might have met before, but they really got on together. There's a picture on the internet of them two at the premiere, and they are just... Somebody has said something funny, and Rik is laughing, and Alan's just doing that. You know that sort of look that he had, which was brilliant, where he was just like, oh. And you're like, I'd love to have been a fly on the wall with these two.
Yeah.
Because I get the feeling they just laughed and laughed and laughed, and yet... you kind of don't think that they would get on, really. No,
because you assume that Alan Rickman would have been rather dry and maybe Rik would have been too silly, but, you know, you never know people, do you, really?
This is the thing, yeah. And it clearly, Rik was he got love from everybody.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Everybody. Just everybody. Nobody has got a bad story about Rik Mayall. I'm sorry, they just don't. And if they do, don't bring it round here. We're not interested.
That's the point, isn't it? People don't want to hear it.
Yeah, you can imagine somebody go, yeah, I've got this story about... In fact, there's one online where somebody was interviewing him, and apparently Rik was in a bad mood, and he put the phone down, and I read it, and I'm thinking... well, maybe it was you, mate.
Yeah.
Maybe it was you.
Considering that you're the only one saying anything negative.
Yeah, exactly.
You would suggest that.
I was half tempted to tweet him and say it's probably you, mate.
But then you probably find out why. also, we were talking off air about how Rik kind of... There would be things that he didn't want to talk about, right? And if he didn't want to talk about it, there was no way you were going to get him onto it. That Australian interview you were telling me about. Oh, yeah. Where he was sitting with Ben Elton.
Yeah, he was sat with Ben Elton. This was early when they went out on tour in Australia. Because Rik was loved in Australia. Absolutely loved. And they went out there a few times as well. And this was the time when they went out there. And this is when Ben Elton met his wife, wife, on this tour.
You wouldn't think he'd have a chance with Rik there.
There you go, you see. Rik was elsewhere, I imagine, but somebody had sat them down, and basically the entire idea of the interview was the fact that, right, tell us about the machinations of comedy, of your comedy. And Ben Elton sat there, and as he does, you know, he's talking at length about these things and talking whatever else. And then Rik is just sat there. He's got this hat on, this weird hat, but all he's doing is he's doing that ear thing where he folds his ear into his own ear canal and then it pops out.
Right.
And he just keeps doing this all the way through the interview. And you can tell that at some point Ben Elton's like, are you going to chime in or not? And Rik's like, no, I'm just going to sit here and do my ear thing.
He's in the corner wiggling his bum like he was when he was a kid. That's exactly the thing, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. He would much rather be out there making childish movements or something than actually giving away the secrets.
I'm not going to explain to you how I do it, just enjoy the fact that I'm doing it.
Yeah, I'm not going to show you behind the curtain, basically. Yeah. I'm going to show you.
Who cares, really? If you've got Rik Mayall standing in front of you want him to do the Rik Mayall stuff.
It's true. I mean, I love to hear from film directors about certain films. You know, I'll happily listen to Quentin Tarantino for hours on end about how he shoots certain things on, like, you know, Panavision or something. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. But
and you know he'll love that as well.
Yeah, exactly. This is the thing. Like, give me 9 hours with Tarantino, it's not enough. But with Rik, I'd be like, no, listen, just do the stuff. Just be you, and you know.
Tell me the stories in your way.
Yes, exactly. You know, tell me the stories of how you died for longer than Christ. Which he told everybody. He told everybody. I mean, it was his opening line. The first time he met Gwyneth Powell, who played his wife in Man Down, he was like, "Hi, I'm Rik. I was dead longer than Jesus."
There's no comeback from that, though, is there?
There is. How do you come back from something like that? You know, she's like, well, I was Mrs. McCluskey in Grange Hill. And you're like, I mean, to anybody else, it would be like, that's a pretty good role, actually. But you're with Rik Mayall.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, what a shame. We did mention, I know we don't really like to go into the negative, but you did say, and I know you've written a book about Pacino, because we've spoken about that before. And there's a similar thing going on in some of Rik Mayall's roles. You say you feel like he's a bit behind the eyes. You can see he's doing it for the money.
I think they got to a point where maybe it did feel that there were certain projects that he was just doing because it got to a point where nobody was offering him comedy.
Right.
Because you know how people come in and out of fashion, as is always the way. I think it got to a point where people were possibly sick of Rik Mayall, you know, the skits and everything.
Yeah. I'm doing a show and it's not a Rik Mayall show, so he can't be in it.
Yeah, exactly. Why would we have Rik Mayall in a Rik Mayall show? It seems pointless. So I think there are projects out there that he did, and you can see them where you just think, yeah, this is not what he should have been doing at all. I mean, the thing is as well, he was doing these shows and being paid for it, but at the same time, behind the scenes, he was storing that money up and trying to do his own things as well.
Okay, so that was the reason.
So he was trying to do bits and bobs like that, but at the same time, there's a lot out there where you're like, this is not great. This is not even good. This is not even average. This is quite bad.
What do you reckon then? Too tight a leash?
That's a good question. It's probably a number of things, to be honest. Yeah, probably too tight a leash. If you're going to have Rik Mayall, you've got to have Rik Mayall doing something. It takes a brave person to turn around to Rik Mayall and say, we don't want you to play it like this. We actually want you to play it straight. It happens a couple of times. As I said, that film Errors of the Human Body, which is a horror film, where he plays it straight. He's really good in that. And it takes somebody brave to turn around and say, well, actually, we want you to play it straight. We think you can do it. And actually, he did straight roles. You know, you think about Rik Mayall Presents, the shows that he the 6 episodes that he did for ITV, where he showed off his dramatic side. There was Dancing Queen, Mickey Love. I just
about remember that.
Yeah.
What was that? Was that like a sort of Tales of the Unexpected type thing?
Yeah, it was all co-written by Rik, but it was all just different stories completely. So Dancing Queen was him and Helena Bonham Carter, which was the best one of the lot. He had got drunk at his stag do and his mates had put him on a train to Scarborough and he was stranded in Scarborough with the stripper, which was Helena Bonham Carter. But there's a load of things going on in that film that are really interesting. But then he also did Mickey Love, which was about a TV presenter who was being pushed out by somebody young and hip and trendy. There was Claire de Lune, which was this lovely story about him and his daughter trying to survive, and he's a taxi driver and he takes in somebody to take her to the airport, but it turns out that there's a darker side to this person as well.
Blimey.
There's some really good, I mean, he did some really good stuff. But I think some of it passed people by because it was too dramatic.
Yeah.
You know,
people
and
didn't realise that's what he could do, and he was good at it.
Absolutely. You think about the fact that he was in Jonathan Creek.
Was he?
Yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah, he was in 2 episodes. Yeah, and unsurprisingly, he stole both of those episodes. He was in The Bill, as well.
God.
He was in loads of... There was a time where he would just pop up in things where you're like, why is Rik Mayall in this? This is very odd,
right.
but it kind of works. There's just odd bits.
The more I think about Man Down, the more I think how brave it was of Greg to share a screen with him, because you can't win, can you?
No.
You didn't have to say anything.
No, absolutely not. And one of the directors I spoke to, he said... There's a scene in the first series where he has to throw a bucket of water over Greg when he's in the bed. And Rik was like, I'm just going to do it. He said, no, you've got to wait until I do the count, because otherwise the cameras are not going to be... He said, no, I'm just going to do it. And he said, we got into a full-on slagging match about why he can't just do it, basically. He said, we went hell for leather at it. He said, so we set it all up, and he goes, right, 1, 2, and then Rik throws the bucket of water.
Of course he does.
Of course he does. And he said, fortunately, at this time, I'd already got the cameras rolling because I kind of knew, and it worked really well because Greg's reaction that's in the show is actually what happened.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
And also Rik would have had a little bit of a fury behind him to propel that water through the air.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine.
Yeah, that anarchic side was still there when he was filming Man Down.
Good. Glad. So sadly missed. How do people get hold of this book?
It's available from all ebook providers, good ones and bad ones as well. And if you want a physical copy, we should say that. We haven't done that tonight.
Hey, how are you going to sign these? You've got a hard act to follow.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. I have been signing a few, I have to say.
Love and violence.
I've been trying to think of really good lines, and I've been putting bottom quotes in some of them, and then I'm thinking, I hope they get the quote. Otherwise, I've just put "you vast slug" in it for no reason.
They'll get it. They'll get it.
But yeah, if you want a physical copy, which has got all the pictures in it, it's currently available on lulu.com, which is a print-on-demand service.
Brilliant.
So, yes. Can I tell one story, just quickly?
We're kind of out of time.
Okay, fine.
Tell you what, you can hang on and do one after the news. How about that?
Just one story, that's
Can you
it.
stick around?
Yeah, of course.
All right,
Yeah.
well, let's do that. 0344 499 1000. Jackie, I can see you've rung as well. We'll speak to you after the news.
Late Night with Katherine Boyle on Talk Radio.
Not just me, though. I'm here with Mark Searby. He's written a brilliant book about Rik Mayall. Comedy Genius, it's called, and you can get it from all good online e-book retailers and
Yes.
lulu.com, which
Yes.
will print it out to order. There was another story you wanted to tell us before you go.
Yeah, it's a brilliant story. I met Robert Llewellyn from Red Dwarf fame about 18 months ago and said to him, I'm writing this book about Rik, and I know that you had sort of had a slight interaction with him. Would you be interested in being interviewed? He said, I can't do it now at the moment, but, let's exchange numbers. And it didn't happen for whatever happened. But he told me a story there and then, and he said, when I was first starting in comedy, he said I joined a comedy troupe in Islington, and he said our first gig was at what is now the Academy Islington, and he said so for 2 weeks we practiced this piece where it was like singing and dancing numbers and jokes and whatever else. He said we practiced and practiced and practiced till we got it down perfectly. And he said then on the night we did it. It was fantastic. He said it went so well. He said I was so pleased. He said and then in the next breath Rik walked on and said, right, who wants to see my penis?
Oh.
And he said it got a bigger laugh than our entire thing.
And that is working with Rik Mayall. Now, the penis thing was a bit of a motif, wasn't it, through a lot of his live act in particular.
Yeah.
Ian tells a story about going to see Bottom with his mum, and he was too young to go and see it, really, but it only kind of became obvious after the first 10 minutes, and there was a lot of swearing and knob gags and an actual penis.
Yeah.
But his mum sort of went, well, we're here now. And you had a similar experience, didn't you?
Yeah, the first Bottom live show. I went with my mum, and you know, it was like we'd already seen Bottom, the first series. We're like, yeah, this is really fun. And then we went to see it, and I think my mum was probably the same as Ian's mum, where you're like, well, we're here now. But the first moment when you see Rik on stage for that first live Bottom show, he turns up and he's got a sex doll down his pants,
right?
And you think,
there's the tone set.
Okay, I'm just about 13 years old. I'm not going to get any of these jokes at all. But oh my goodness, it's hilarious, isn't it?
Brilliant. Let's have a quick word with Jackie, who's been waiting very patiently. Hey, Jackie.
Oh, hi, good evening, Kath. No, I was just listening to the whole Rik Mayall things. I've just been laughing my head off. My earliest memory of watching him on the telly, I don't know if you've mentioned it earlier on, was his Kevin Turvey.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, I can do it. I still do the impression.
Go on, let's hear it.
Hello, my name's Kevin Turvey. I'm an investigative reporter. He just got me from that moment with his spiky hair, and he's sitting in the chair doing his thing with that. But Kevin Turvey was the first thing, and I was hooked from then on.
Yeah, I'd watch him in anything. And, you know, from what Mark said, some of it is a bit crappy, but you'd still watch him because it's like spending a couple of hours in his company, and he seems like great fun. You know, it was great fun.
I think you still get some of it on YouTube, but, you know, just to go back and watch it again when he first came on and said that, and I went, oh, this fella's just brilliant. I just love him. I'm really looking forward to reading the book as well. I'm definitely going to look that up.
Make sure you do. I'm going to have a read of it, and I'm also going to have a look at his autobiography because I hadn't thought to read that for some reason.
Yeah. No, I've never read that one. No, I need to do that as well.
I've got a homework sheet from tonight, yeah.
So am I now. Oh, lovely to hear about all the stories. Well, it's been a really good start to the evening.
Oh, thanks very much, Jackie. You take care of yourself. Okay. Thanks for ringing. Bye. 03444991000. And with that, I think we've got to close the old curtains on the Rik Mayall stuff.
Oh, that just sounds...
It's really sad, isn't it?
That's sad,
Here's the thing, right? You talk about all the brilliant things, and so many people have got loads of brilliant memories of him, private things that he wrote in books, and I remember there was a thing circulating again on Twitter about someone had written to him and asked him to write a best man speech, and he'd written, you know, that he was a lazy... you know what, and he had no right to do any of this stuff, and he was hilarious, and told him to F off. But that's what people wanted.
Yeah.
A little bit of that. Irreverence.
Yeah. Anarchy.
Yeah, but who have we got now?
Well, that's a very good point. There's a lot of T-shirt comedians out there, is what I would class them as.
Yeah.
They're all in T-shirts. They all do the same jokes. You're like, I literally could not pick most of them out in a lineup, but you think about alternative comedy and when Rik was around.
And that's not us just being old farts, is it?
I hope not. I'm a youthful person. No, but like you think about the time when Rik and Alexis Sale and Nigel Plano were coming through, and they were really aggressive, and they were really going for the jugular, not just for, you know, the government, but in terms of comedy.
Yeah.
And if you went to see them, you were getting picked on. It didn't matter. But it was also quite irreverent as well, and it was all new. And as I said, at the time, people didn't classify it as stand-up. It was alternative cabaret. It was a very different time, and we need comedians to push the boundaries, and unfortunately...
And do stuff that doesn't work necessarily.
Yeah.
Do TV companies have the patience for that anymore?
Probably not. Probably not. The thing is, though, you know, Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, that didn't work at the time. It was binned off after one series. Mm-hmm. But if you watch it now, it works now because basically Rik is playing a character who has no talent whatsoever, but he's on TV. Now, is that not modern times?
Yikes, yeah.
Yeah. You know, and then there's the bouncer as well, which is Ade Edmondson, and then there's his agent as well, played by Nigel Plano as well. So, you know, I watch it now and I'm like, this is perfect for now.
Yeah.
It didn't work then, I can see why, but now
well, because people wanted Lord Flashheart or someone coming in pulling his pants down, didn't they?
Well, we can get that as well, can't we?
Thankfully we can. Well, that catalogue is amazing, and as I say, that's a rabbit hole I'm about to go down, and in a big way. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mark, and thanks for writing this.
Me.
I love your obsessions. I love the fact that, because we met through your Pacino obsession. You did a film night. I'd never seen that film before. Incredible.
Dog Day Afternoon. Yeah.
Completely unexpected for that time. Incredible.
Yeah.
And you know, your passion for films and for entertainment is something else, and I really appreciate your attention to detail. This is great. Can I keep it?
Yes, you can.
Thank you very much. I want you to write something really rude in the front of it for me as well before you go.
Okay, I better do it off air though.
Thanks very much. That's Mark Searby. His book Comedy Genius, available through all good e-book retailers. Make sure you get a copy. Rik Mayall, God, we all miss him, don't we? 0344 499 1000.
Late Night with Katherine Boyle on Talk Radio.
Wasn't that glorious? God, I really miss Rik Mayall. Someone I never knew, never got to meet. He would have been a hoot. You just know it. And I'm so delighted. You know when you hear someone's written a book about a hero of yours and you think, please, please, please don't let there be anything cruddy in there. Please let him be as wonderful as I think he is. And it sounds very much as if that's the case with Rik. And I'm trying to think of other people who have that kind of charisma, that universal charisma. And I can only really think of Jeff Goldblum is that cool. Although I know some people who think he's a bit creepy. I love Jeff Goldblum so much. Now, there's someone I have met, and it was flipping brilliant. Right, so what are we going to talk about for the rest of the night? We've got loads, right? We've got people who are chancers, and you absolutely love it. You know, the fact that they're sort of punching up, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. But also, the police force that wants you to grass on your neighbour. And this is an interesting sort of moral question. I know you like getting your teeth into this, so have a think about this. 0344 499 1000, of course, the number to call. And you don't have to talk about any of this stuff. You can talk about whatever you feel like, as you well know. Penguinland, by the way, thanks for your tweet saying, hoping the first hour of tonight's show is going to be available on podcast. I know people would love to hear the Rik Mayall stuff. Of course it is. I'm the one that makes a podcast, so I'll make absolutely sure of it. So according to the Daily Star, cannabis is the country's most commonly used illegal drug, with 30% of British adults, that's around 10 million of us, having tried the drug at least once. So it wouldn't be the greatest surprise if you've noticed the drug's recognisable smell in your neighbourhood, right? Many of us choose to live and let live, but if the odour of cannabis is a problem for you, or if you think the drug's use is linked to wider criminal activity, what can you do about it? A police spokesperson told the whole Daily Mail, and of course they're going to say this, the possession of cannabis is an offence and will be dealt with by police. She continued, it is a widespread issue across the county and we are focusing our resources to tackle those connected with the cultivation and dealing of the drug to help crack down on the issue. We'd encourage anyone who suspects drug activity in their community to contact us. The spokesperson added, your identity, of course, will be protected if you tip them off. She said police would never give away a caller's identity, adding, we wouldn't say information has come from a neighbour. That narrows it down. We'd just say we've received calls about it. She added that officers on the beat might also patrol a particular area based on a tip-off. If they were to notice the smell of cannabis coming from one particular house themselves, they may knock on the door and broach the subject that way. She added that people could also call Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 if you wanted to remain anonymous throughout the process. The police spokesman said that any penalty for the offender could depend on a number of things, including the amount of cannabis and whether someone's got any previous convictions, and warned that while you could also inform the person's landlord if they were renting, the landlord is not bound to keep your identity a secret in the same way that police are. As long as the tenancy agreement's been drawn up properly, anyone growing cannabis will be in breach of it. However, you also need to remember that there are limits on what a landlord can do. Would you grass on your neighbour? Would you? 0344 499 1000 on this matter or anything else. I've been in a situation where in my first flat, our neighbours were obviously massive stoners, right? And we shared a connecting corridor between our flats. And sometimes walking through that, there was a little bit of a fug going on. I'm not going to lie. And you get to your door and think, I need to have a bit of a lie down. But they did no harm. I'm not going to grass them up. Unless, right, here's the thing that would make me think twice. If I felt threatened by it, didn't feel threatened by it. If I felt that people were hanging about that might do damage to me or my kids or my property or whatever, maybe. But for the most part, you wouldn't grass, would you? 0344 499 1000. There'll be someone listening now who has felt that they had to. And I'd be really interested to hear your story. No judgment whatsoever, because I know you don't do that for no reason. And also the thought process of, are they going to find out it was me? That's going to make things really difficult and potentially dangerous. How do you work it out if you feel like you've got to get the police involved with your neighbour? 0344 499 1000. That's the heavy one, potentially, or it could be a funny one. I don't know your story. Tell me it. But this one really did tickle me, this story. And I've done it before. When we worked at Three Counties Radio, there was a Singhsburys, I think in Aylesbury, right? Have you heard this one? It's brilliant. A shop owner Maybe getting a call from Sainsbury's lawyer, says the Mirror. I dare say if you've printed it, they're definitely going to get a call at some point. After calling his business Singhsbury, Mandeep Singh Chatter's off-licence has become a tourist attraction in Wolverhampton after he erected the sign in orange lettering. Customers apparently have been lining up to take selfies outside his Singhsbury's local that some say looks a lot like a Sainsbury's. But the former sandwich delivery driver Mandeep, who's 34, in case you wanted to check his age, insists there is an innocent explanation, saying, I decided on the name because my name is Singh and it's on Bushbury Road. It's just a coincidence. I think the nearest Sainsbury's is a couple of miles away, so it's not exactly close, and we are certainly not competition. I mean, the writing is exactly the same. I'm just a small business owner trying to make a living. People keep stopping their cars to take pictures with the sign, and I've had many nice comments. I've heard nothing from a supermarket which has a similar name, and I see no problem with it. It's a different logo, a different colour, a different company. It's completely different. It's not completely different. It's really similar. He's following the footsteps of a nearby business, Kent Tuck Inn Fried Chicken, on Kent Street in Upper Cornwall, West Midlands. Owner George Georgia received a demand from American fast food giant KFC to change the name when it opened in 1999, but he refused. How do you think that went? It's fine. Still got it today, apparently. Sainsbury's has been contacted for comment about Mandeep's shop. Grasses. Absolute grasses. I think this man should be praised for just sheer brass neck. There is a shop on the way to my gran's when I used to go and see my gran in Manchester called the Teco Express. Again, very, very similar livery. And no one would have thought it was the other place. No one would have thought it. You just know that it's someone chancing their arm. Fair play, right? That's what this country's got, isn't it? A sense of humour. We all know what the score is there, surely. 0344 499 1000. If you've got any more of those shop names that really... they're chancing it. Give us a shout. 0344 499 1000. You can tweet at Talk Radio, or you can text 87222. Just remember to start your text with the word talk, and your text will cost 25p plus your standard network charge. You can tweet me at Flippin' Kath, or at Talk Radio. I'm sorry, I'm just slightly distracted by the name of one of the correspondents on Twitter, which I can't read out, but thanks for your message, Ted, saying that was great fun. Wish it could have been a 4-hour show exclusively about Dr. the Rik. I know, one of those people that everybody likes, isn't he, Rik Mayall? Can you think of any more? Give us a shout with that one. Okay, well, the phone lines are open, but it would appear you're all having a little... You're all having a little nap. That's cool. That's fine. You know, these kind of new age ideas of how you put things out into the universe if you want to get something back. I think it's called the law of attraction. Wasn't it Noel... What's his name? Noel Edmonds, who did that cosmic ordering thing. I think it's a similar principle, right? Apparently, it's real. See, in the olden days, it would have been called wishing. But now it's cosmic ordering. According to the Mail Online, the law of attraction does exist. I'd be really interested in speaking to you if you're the sort of person who writes out kind of a plan. This year I'm going to, and maybe it's a 5-point thing, and it's kind of a wish list. Does it work? Because at this point, I'm willing to try anything like that. The law of attraction does exist, and it's not me saying that. The neuroscientist behind this article is about to reveal 6 steps to training your brain to manifest success, including, here's the thing, believing you are wealthy, no matter how little you have. Okay. An expert has revealed how you can combine science and positive thinking to achieve your goals, according to Daily Mail Online. Neuroscientist, life coach and psychiatrist Dr. Tara Swart, who teaches at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in King's College in London, so is kosher, explained in her new book, The Source, how 6 principles could be used in our everyday life to make things happen. Do you believe in that, or do you think that basically we're all at the mercy of luck? Or bad luck sometimes? Or is that even too supernatural for you? Is it just life just a series of events and we're kind of all just... feathers blowing in the breeze? I think humankind has always wanted to believe that you've got some sort of control over life, but is that just man's arrogance? I don't know. So this neuroscientist says 6 principles could be used in our everyday life to make things happen. These are based on neuroplasticity, or the brain's ability to change itself during adulthood. According to Dr. Swart, it is possible to rewire your brain or to change our attitude in order to succeed. She explains we can train ourselves to become the people we need to be in order to provoke positive change in our lives. And that statement brings me very neatly on to Alistair, who's on the phone. Hey, Alistair.
Hi, Catherine, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Friday evening.
I'm all right. It's always a little bit quiet after we have a really interesting guest, which makes you think, do I get someone dead boring on next time, so that we get, the phone lines are jumping by the time we finish. But I think we're all just a little bit sad when we realise that we had Rik Mayall and now we don't.
Yeah, I watched so much of his stuff when I was a lot younger, the young ones, and that was the main one for me, the young ones. I thought it was brilliant, yeah. And I saw other stuff as well. He was always very good.
Yeah, bless him. What have you got for us
Billy
tonight,
Connolly, I thought would be another person.
This is someone with universal appeal.
I've been absolutely in stitches watching him in his early concerts and on tape and stuff. Brilliant comic. Different to Rik, but brilliant.
Tell you what there is, similar air of manic madness in his eyes, which is always very exciting.
I think Billy Connolly's comedy for me came over as observation, and he could make any sort of normal-looking scene. He could take elements of it and just convert it into complete laughter, and he had all the audience just absolutely in stitches.
Yeah. But
Rik sadly died too young, very much so.
Such a shame.
Right.
But, I suppose it's that whole thing of being glad that they existed in the first place, because what a gift. And it sounds like I've got plenty to catch up on as well, because, the bottom and young ones is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys were talking there. I'm probably going to look up some of his stuff as well, because I missed too much. Probably I was too drunk. But yeah, I will do.
Wonderful.
What would Rik Mayall make of your bathroom at the moment?
It looks like the set of Jack and Ori at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, the builder did turn up today. He brought a friend. The friend had to leave early because of a domestic emergency, which I believe. It just seems to be the curse of the bathroom at the moment. Either no one turns up or someone turns up and has to leave. Something terrible happens. But do you know what? I'm fine. I am accepting that this is going to take a while. I'm lucky that my parents live around the corner and I can keep clean. It's all groovy. I'm going to have a lovely bathroom at the end of it all, and one that doesn't leak. Because to be honest, that one we had was about to come through the ceiling. So
it's funny though, because Iain went through this as well, didn't he, with his builders, didn't he? That, leakages and all sorts, I think.
But our old bathroom was there when we arrived, and we've lived in that house since before we got married, so probably 13, 14 years, and that bathroom was not new then. It is leaking and all sorts. And, now we haven't got little babies. Our priorities are different. We moved in and kind of were just coping with having little babies, and there was no point in having a super swish house. Whereas now they're getting a bit older, and things are starting to crumble as well. If I'm absolutely honest. So
it's nice to have a great bathroom, isn't it? As well.
Yeah, it won't be great, but it won't be leaking, and it'll look nice. But it's nothing massively flash. But it'll be nice. It will be nice to have something. We've got rid of the bath because we've not got little babies anymore, and when you've only got one bathroom, I don't think anyone's got time to luxuriate. So, and the girls are getting older, so soon it's going to be heavy traffic through there. God, I'll be banging on the doors.
I hope that it's sorted by the end of this week.
It'll be all right. If it is, it is. I'm quite zen about it. We were just about to start talking about, whether you believe you can change your life by kind of wishing it and willing it, and whether you can. Yeah. And I know you've turned your life around and reprogrammed your thinking.
Yes, indeed.
So what I'm saying is I'm reprogramming myself to just be zen about the bathroom. It's a small thing,
yes, of course.
but it's
Yes,
acceptance that there are certain things I can control and certain things I can't, and all I can control is my reaction to the uncontrollable at the moment.
Well, you sound very calm.
I am pretty calm, actually. I'm
Good,
also knackered.
yeah.
Driving in, I was really tired, and normally that doesn't happen till I get home.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But can I just mention about the drugs thing you mentioned?
Yeah. Would you grass a neighbour?
Well, no, I wouldn't. The only time... Right, OK, I've got a very controversial view about the drugs thing.
Go on.
Because I'm one for decriminalisation like Portugal.
I don't think it's outrageous to think that it will happen at some point.
Well, I'm not sure that any government will do it because they'll be jumped upon by the mainstream media, and that's what's caused them not to do it in the past. So you might be right. There might come a day where there might be a more, a better, a more sensible view. Funny enough, I'd watched a little bit of a programme this morning on BBC One, and this guy was saying, look, if you actually give drug users care via the health system, so you actually regulate the drugs through that kind of route, then you would wipe out a lot of the drug gangs in a slash, because that's why that's what they rely on to bully people and to get people in, and get young kids, 10, 11, 12-year-old young kids to sort of transport the drugs. I mean, in terms of your original question, the only time when, you might consider it if you think there's a cannabis factory going on in a house. But then the problem there is that's a big risk, isn't it? Because of the probable people involved with it.
Yeah, because the supply chain doesn't begin and end with a factory, does it?
Yeah, so, I mean, I've never had that experience of living near someone who used it. I did have a terrifying experience in Amsterdam when I was smoking cannabis all day. This was back in the 80s. And I got the paranoia at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, God.
And I had to stand in a pub corner for about an hour, and then I was fine. No, it is terrifying, actually, yeah.
But, I think, bless them, and I know that the police have to say this stuff, but I don't think they're particularly bothered about, occasional cannabis use, are they?
Well, they haven't got any resources at the moment to do much.
They're not going to send a copper to go up down sniffing streets.
Not for single use, not for self-use, no. I wouldn't have thought so. But, I mean, I think I don't know whether it's kind of a thing that the government are trying to push the things onto the public to say, right, can you help us out? Because we haven't got enough police. Can you help us out by reporting crime more often? Which is fine, but then there are always consequences to that, of course. And, probably in most estates where, I don't want to stereotype, but there may be more drug use than perhaps in other kinds of areas.
Well, it depends on the drug, doesn't it?
Those people are going to be more scared about, the people who run the estate, and, the gangsters, not the gangsters, but necessarily, but people who are in charge. Yeah,
because you've got to live there and you've got to exist there, and, there is a kind of pecking order that has to be abided by. You don't want to be the one that sticks your neck out. Because you can't... Are the police really going to guarantee you 24-hour security? That's the fear, isn't it? That's the fear. That's it. If it gets out that it's you that grassed.
That's it.
Oh, man. But, there are people who do stick their necks out and they feel justified to do so. And I'm not going to doubt that some people, are frightened and feel like they have to do something before someone dies, whether it's them or someone else.
Yeah. I mean, if it's... Was it just cannabis that they were referring to? This particular
example is about cannabis use, which I think most people, don't take as seriously as other things.
I mean, I do sympathise with the view of a parent who's lost a child through drug abuse.
Yeah.
That may say, well, cannabis is a gateway drug to harder drugs. But then then the debate gets more complicated then about then how do you kind of prevent people from going to the harder drugs? And as I say, my view is that you stop that by identifying them, giving them youth and social services to discuss it, and if necessary, referral to a GP to talk about it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
No, you're right, and I've got a lot of sympathy with that view. Rather than sort of criminalising people that have got a drug problem, you should see it as a sort of mental health stroke medical issue.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're already too deep in to be abiding by the law anyway.
Well, that's it. You know, I mean, it's like, I mean, it seems like in this country that, I think, isn't this country the most number of closed circuit cameras in certainly in Europe?
I don't know about that stat, but it sounds likely.
Yeah, and it's like we are being monitored very carefully. So, I mean, I just see that this is just a red herring that the papers put in to sell a few papers, maybe, I'm not sure.
Quite possibly. You know, because my parents would class cannabis along with all other, you know, quote-unquote drugs with a big capital D as being, you know, something that will end up killing you. Obviously, you know...
Do you mind if I ask you, Catherine, did you ever take part in anything?
Alistair, I went to college. I know exactly what it smells like, if that's what you're asking me. But I also know that, you know, for the most part, people can partake with something like that and take it or leave it, and it doesn't necessarily lead to them shooting up in an alley.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a bit of cannabis, that situation in Amsterdam, which I did not want to. After I came back from it, I didn't want to touch it. And then I did have half an e-tablet once.
Oh, blimey, what was that like? Can't imagine you on that.
It was... I just kept awake all night, and I didn't feel tired. I felt quite good, but that was it. And then it wore off after a day. It wore off. After a day
of dancing?
No, we weren't actually at any dance in pubs, of course. But I would never go, and I would never trust, because I knew my own mental health, being a depressive and so forth. So I'd never trust LSD because I didn't know what would happen.
Well, here's the thing, and obviously we can't advocate drug use or whatever, but we're having a grown-up conversation about it, and it's not without its complications, especially if you've got this kind of tendency towards mental ill health. And man. Well, anyway, it's nice to hear you. Nice to hear you on the phone. Every time you ring up these days, you've got words of wisdom to impart. You're an inspiration, Alistair.
Oh, I came out of a meeting tonight.
Oh, how was it?
I always feel like, a little bit better. Coming out of a meeting, I always feel a bit more inspired.
I know, and I know we talk a lot about 12 steps, and some people listening to this will go, yeah, but I've not got a drug or alcohol or sex or eating problem. What has it got to do with me? Do you know what? Russell Brand's book, Recovery, I read in order to be a supportive mate to Iain, and I found a load in that was really helpful to me. Yeah. Because everyone's got a thing they do to sort of self-soothe that isn't necessarily the healthiest thing. We've all got one.
We've all got addictions. Yeah. And some have got more than one addiction, and mine was gambling and alcohol. And
oh my God! And the two help each other out so much, don't they?
Yes, it wasn't. I mean, terrible. But I mean, if the best thing about it is, for me, to sum it up, because it's obviously, it's 12 steps, but it makes you a better person than you were. And that's brilliant. And that's why all the politicians should do it.
Yeah, God, if only. Do you know what I really appreciate? Working with Iain, talking to you, the self-awareness it gives you.
Yeah. Hope Ian's better soon. He says he's coming tomorrow, hopefully.
Well, that's the plan, but I've told him he needs to do what he needs to do, and there's no pressure on that from me. He knows I'll hold the fort. But I saw him today, and we had a laugh, so...
Oh, well, that's good. Well, send him my love.
And he's got food in the fridge as well, despite his protestations online yesterday.
Hey, I was interested to hear the other night he mentioned he got toasty maker.
Oh, yeah.
We call them Breville's.
Yeah.
Well, I got one as well before Christmas, and it's a useful thing to have.
My God,
because
taste
a
sensation.
cheese toasty feels to me like a full meal.
Yeah, and you don't have to put a
Brilliant.
lot of cheese in it. You actually can't fit a lot of cheese in it, can you? It starts
Just
squelching.
take 5 minutes to do. It's brilliant.
Beautiful. You're making me hungry now, Alistair. I'm going to say goodbye.
All right, have a good show.
Thanks very much. Nice to speak to you. Thanks, Alistair. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Hey, Damo.
Hey, Kat.
What's going on with you?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I'm okay.
Good.
I just wanted to thank you
For
being the most beautiful sound on the airwaves.
Oh, blimey, Damo. You have to spoil a girl.
You are the most beautiful sound on the airwaves. And that's unbeatable. That is incredible.
You're a good one, Damo.
Uh-huh.
How's your day been?
It's been up and down.
All right.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm coping.
Good.
I'm coping.
Good.
As we do. But yeah, you make it all the better.
Thanks very much, Damo. I appreciate your kind words. 0344 499 1000. Shut up, Sam. It's true.
Late Night with Katherine Boyle on Talk Radio.
Thank you, Paula, for your tweet about Singhsburys. She said, I'm sure I've heard this story before and it had a slightly different ending. Yeah, it did. Listen to this one. This is beautiful. This is how to do PR, right? This is how to do it. A shopkeeper who claimed he was threatened with legal action after calling his shop Singhsburys has changed its name to Morrisings. Jel Singh Nagra's shop had no name for 5 years after he said Sainsbury's complained, the Northern Echo reported. He's now put up a new sign naming his store Morrisings in a bid to put his village of West Allotment, North Tyneside, on the map. A spokesman for Morrisons said the supermarket didn't mind. Beautiful. Mr. Nagra and his customers obviously have good taste, so we wish him well, they added. See, that's beautiful. Don't you think? That's good PR. Mr. Nagra, who commutes 50 miles from Stockton to the shop in Benton Road, spent £350 on the new sign, which he said was a talking point. I bet it was. It's just a bit of banter and fun. It's not like we get passing trade. We're not stealing customers from supermarkets, he added. Originally, when I was away on my honeymoon in 2012, I got a letter saying that Sainsbury's was threatening to take me to court. My family saw the letter and took the sign down because they were so worried. My customers kept saying I needed another sign, so here it is, and it's a bit cheeky. The shop had already been called Singhsburys for 2 years when Mr. Nagra took it over from a family member in 2011. Sainsbury's has been contacted for comment. This was ages ago, so obviously they've not come back. Morrisings, beautiful. Thanks also for these. Oh, God, look at these tweets. They're great. There's people noticing shops on their way home who obviously, I don't know, maybe let's call it at best, it's a coincidence, right, what these shops are called. Harrison said, always drive past this place whenever I'm in Portsmouth. No idea how my man Ken gets away with it. It's called Ken's Fried Chicken and it's in the writing. It's red and white and it's in the writing of a certain well-known chicken shop, which I'm sure is just coincidence. Krista says, I used to pass this every morning on the way to work. Blackpool's famous Ken and Terry's soft scoop ice cream. Well done, Ken and Terry. Well done. Keep those coming. 0344 499 1000 is the number to ring. You can talk about that. You can talk about whether you believe that you can... we'll continue with these 6 ways to dictate the course of your life. Apparently it is possible to harness the law of attraction. I mean, it sounds like bullshine to me, but this is a neuroscientist, so let's see what she's got to say. First of all, though, let's see what Dean's got to say. Hey, Dean.
Hiya, how you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. What brings you to my door?
Brilliant show, as always.
Ah, thanks.
Well, I was just thinking, you were talking about cannabis.
Yeah.
I've been disabled in a wheelchair now for, 15 years?
Yeah.
And I use cannabis every day. Because I get it illegally. Because the new stuff that they're giving people don't actually work on a lot of people.
Right.
You know, I'm not spaced out. I don't get spaced out. I have about 2 cigarettes a day. And that really helps me with my pain.
So what do you think about this idea that, you know, certain police forces are asking neighbours to grasp?
It's terrible. I really do. I think it's, You know, I know that I think the biggest country. Yes, we are. We have more CTC cameras in this country than the rest of Europe. And that's a fact. Also, the Metropolitan Police are trying to bring in these face recognition cameras as well now. You know? And I think it's just, let's not bother with the police, let's just do it all ourselves.
Well, that seems to be the idea, although I think asking a neighbour to dob on a neighbour is something else, isn't it?
I think that's wrong. I think it's totally wrong because somebody's going to get seriously hurt.
Do your neighbours know? Do your neighbours know? And you know,
a lot of these gangs and things like that, they have no moral scruples whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, and somebody's going to get hurt. And when that happens, are they going to be that quick to say, "Oh, well, they shouldn't have tackled them on their own"? No, just by reporting it, they can get hurt.
Yeah.
You know, so I wouldn't. You know, in my position. You know, unfortunately, I live in quite a village in Oxfordshire, and it would take some to get up to my property because I have an apartment on the 3rd floor.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, and I've only, you know, there's no other entrance coming up, you know, to my apartment.
So it's not like
one entrance.
You don't share a floor with someone else that would notice the smell.
No. And my own stairway as well. So, you know, nobody can come in the bottom door.
Right.
Because I've got CCTV cameras on there anyway, purely for my safety, you know, because there's an automatic door locking system on there and everything, you know, because I did feel a bit fearful once when I left it open by mistake and somebody was up on my landing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I got a bit worried, and I'm afraid I had to go for my baseball bat, you know.
Well, listen, I'm going to be honest. When I lived in a ground floor flat, I didn't always feel the safest. You know, my bedroom was right next to the front door. You could hear people coming in and out. And if someone had got in, I mean, you're kind of all trapped in there together, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's only happened once, and I was advised then by the police to put CCTV cameras up. And I said, oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
What are you going to do if I put them up then? Well, we'll just go and get if something happens, we'll just come and get a print from you.
Oh, God, right, so it just becomes evidence, it's not...
Yeah, it just becomes evidence, yeah.
God.
And, you know, it's terrible, really. And it goes on to something, you know, I've got a secure garage, and somebody broke into it and smashed all the windows on my car. You know, I called the police. 5 days later, they turned up.
This is the point, though, isn't it?
Them straight away.
This is the point, right? That if there's no risk to human life, of course you're not going to go to the top of the pile, are you?
Absolutely not. But you expect somebody within 5 days just to call around and say, "Is everything all right now?" You know, or you know, is there anything else we can help you with, or whatever? You know.
Yeah. What do you think was behind that? Was that just a random attack, or do you annoyed someone?
Because you know, I think it goes onto the main street, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's on its own, and okay, I've got lights on it, security lights on it now, so, but I didn't at the time, you know. But you shouldn't have to keep putting security light and cameras up everywhere, you do.
And listen, I know it's just stuff, right? And you can see, if it's not your car that's been vandalised, you just think, well, it's just people being being mindless and just being thugs. But that's an infringement on your property, and you don't know what's behind it, and you don't know whether they're going to come back, and your mind ticks over, doesn't it?
Of course, the police, they said to me, "Do you think it's a hate crime?" I said, "What? Why?" "Oh, you being disabled."
Wow, okay.
I said, "Well, nobody knows I'm disabled. Unless they break into the car and see us. I've got no stickers on the car. I only have my my badge that I put up, my blue badge.
Yeah.
But then that's taken indoors at night because there was a spate of people breaking in and taking them, you know.
Yeah.
And so it looks to me that if it's just a small crime, they're just not going to bother anymore.
No, well, but also I can kind of understand the other side of it. If there's not enough people, if there's not enough manpower,
exactly,
they have to prioritise, don't they?
See, I mean, this is the big con of this particular government. They're giving 20,000 police officers back that they took away. It's not extra. They took them away. And this is what people don't realise.
Well, I think people do realise, but I can't believe they continue to try to push that line even when they were found out, you know.
Yeah, they still done it, didn't they? Yeah, they still pushed that line.
Give us the police officers back and give us a few more, then that's extra.
Yeah, they say 20,000 nurses. Hang on a minute, we're 45,000 short. So how can you have 20 places when you're including the people
they're already
on
working
maternity leave and people like that? So they're already employed.
I know.
It turns out there was about 5,000 that they were putting up forward. You know, so it annoys me a little bit when they don't tell the truth.
Well,
I mean, I brought my children up, to be honest, and courteous, you know, and all that. And I'm afraid my daughter said to me, now Boris Johnson's got there, all morals are gone, haven't they?
Well, some people think that. Some people think he's the best thing since sliced bread, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not a Remainer, and I'm a hard Remainer, and I actually would have leaned more to the leaving, but I didn't. I voted Remain in the end. It came down to my postal vote, you know. And the reason I done that is because I've got a son and 2 grandchildren living in Germany. And under the European medical card, I can travel and book a hospital bed if I need one.
Yeah.
And they charge the NHS.
Yeah.
But now I have to if I want to go and see my son, I got 3 quotes the other week to go to Germany in June. One was £700 for a week because they don't know whether I'll be going into hospital or not. They're not taking that guarantee. You know what I mean?
Was that for insurance you're talking?
Yeah, that's travel insurance and health insurance.
Blimey.
£700, yeah. And I said, well, what's that for? Well, just in case you have to go into hospital.
Blimey.
I said, but what happens if I don't? Do I get my money back?
It's not the way it works, is it?
They said, no. I said, well, you know, that's a bit of a rip-off, isn't it?
Are you going to go?
No. My son's coming over. I'm paying for them to come over.
Actually, probably works out cheaper, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I booked their flights the other day, and for the 4 of them, it was just under £200 return because I booked it well in advance, you know. Okay.
Well, look, enjoy them coming over. It's a shame it's worked out that way.
Yeah, lovely listening to you, Kat, and hope Iain gets better soon. And I love listening to your show every night.
Bless you. Thanks very much for ringing, Dean. It's nice to hear your voice. Let's have a quick word with Richard. Hey, Richard.
Hello.
You're on.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm firing up if you're still talking about it.
I can still talk about whatever you want.
Rik Mayall.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm 49 in a couple of weeks, so I kind of got sort of introduced to him, if you like, sort of the very early 80s, and I kind of remember him being, I'm sure the programme was called A Kick Up the 80s, when he was Kevin Turvey. All right, my name's Kevin Turvey, you know.
Yes.
And he had a different subject every week, but every one was hilarious. And the next time I saw him was, I don't know if you remember, Jack and Ori used to be on.
Yeah.
And he did a couple of episodes, Jack and Ori, and he was just so wacky.
It was brilliant. He did George's Marvellous Medicine, and I was just the right age to watch it as well. But we were just talking to Mark Searby, who's written a book about him, and he says that kind of caused him to be blacklisted from Jack and Ori for years because they were furious that he'd sent out this irresponsible message.
Really?
Yeah. Although, to be honest, me and my sister did reenact that. Mum was like, "My bloody shampoo! Will you stop making Marvellous Medicines, please?" But, you know, it was a joy, and I think it gave quite a staid, a bit boring format. I didn't really like Jack and Ori before that.
No.
It gave it a kick up the jacksie, didn't it?
Yeah, and which is quite apt that I said a kick up the 80s. I'm absolutely I'm
you did. I've just looked it up. 1981 to 84.
Kick up the 80s.
Yeah.
Kevin Turvey.
Robbie Coltrane was in it. Tracy Ullman, Richard Stilgoe, Miriam Margolyes, Rik Mayall, Ron Bain, and Roger Sloman.
There was a lot of people became very big overnight with that thing.
Tracy Ullman went massive in America, didn't she?
Oh, she never looked back, did she?
I don't think she came back, no.
And, well, yeah. I think she might come back with an American accent.
I think she did a bit, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I was very young. Just sort of, if you kind of remember those days, there was, well, everybody can say at a certain age, but there was a hell of a lot of negativity. I mean, especially, we had this nuclear thing hanging over our head about, there was lots of public information, things put on the television about, what to do in a nuclear war, and not just that, people, if you fall into a canal or hit a pile, and it was very scary.
Yeah. It was grim.
It was extremely grim. And then all of a sudden, something like The Young Ones came on, and it was, what? It was silly, it was wacky, but it was also so different to, The Good Life, and I know they represented them once in there, or Terry and June. It was, what? This is speaking to me now.
Yeah, it didn't go by the usual rules of comedy, which was, here's a nice, safe environment, and this is what's going to happen, and it'll all be good in the end.
Yeah, and we wasn't that well off at my house, so we didn't have a video recorder, but across the road where my nan was, my uncle, who was only 4 years old, he was into The Young Ones as well.
Yeah.
And I used to run over there every weekend to watch it on, which he taped,
Yeah.
And
how old were you, Richard? I'm trying to work it out.
Well, I was born in 71.
Right.
So I suppose I would have been about 10, 11.
Right, okay. So that humour is a 10, 11-year-old boy's humour, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it certainly kind of had an effect on the way I am today. As in, you can sort of make a laugh out of anything, really.
Yeah.
Or I suppose some people could call it so. I mean, I can still remember my dad or my nan or my granddad saying, "You find this funny, dear?" But the more they said that, the more I found it funny.
Exactly, because it wasn't for them. They can have Terry and June and The Good Life and all that stuff that came on a Saturday night or a Sunday night when you knew it was time to go to school in the morning. But this was yours, and actually you were glad they didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. My dad was a bit kind of like that chap out of Competitive Dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was a bit scary, so you were scared if that was on while he was around. But the other ones kind of just put up with it, But and not just that, as he went further, to the New Statesman with Alan Bastard, and when he finally, and Blackadder as well.
Yeah.
With those couple of appearances.
But he wasn't even in it that much, but he soon made his mark, didn't he?
Yeah, and I remember watching a documentary on Blackadder, and Stephen Fry had a bit to say, and all these other, comedians that was around that time. And they said it was a real risk.
Yeah. Well, Mark was telling us that, because I didn't realise this sort of behind-the-scenes stuff, but they didn't know what he was going to do when he first came in as Flashheart. He came blasting in, and there's sort of pyros and stuff, came blasting in, and you can see it, and I'm going to watch it again. Apparently you can see Stephen Fry standing back with a big grin on his face, like, watch him do his thing, isn't he magnificent? And Miranda Richardson's face is kind of, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah, because even there was a kind of a script, he just ad-libbed all the way through. And just because he is so wacky and berserk, they didn't know what they were going to get,
But that was part of the charm, wasn't it? That sort of devilish, unpredictable, anarchic thing. I found it a little bit frightening at times when I was really little, I've got to be honest.
I can understand that. But I think with the riskiness with Blackadder as well, let's take, for example, the first one when he was Queen Elizabeth and stuff.
Yeah.
He goes, well, hey,
Woof!
It was... Because it was so dry humour all the way through and quiet, and, Blackadder was always trying his little tricks. And then all of a sudden, this explosion of just... But it worked.
Yeah, big blast of colour.
Yeah. And then the second time in Blackadder's goes forth, sit down, Fritz.
It was wonderful. He seems to be having a good time in any situation, no matter how dire the situation was, Flashheart, didn't he? Listen, I'm going to have to go, Richard, because we've got coming up to the news.
It's lovely talking to you.
Hey, nice to have your memories there. It was so lovely to speak to you. 034 4499 1000. You're listening to Talk Radio.
Talk Radio. Across the UK. Late night with Katherine Boyle on Talk Radio.
In your life, see a diver kiss his wife while the bubbles bounce about above the water?
Come again?
Did you ever in your life feel low? See a diver kiss his wife, whoa, way beneath the ocean in the kingdom of the sea while the bubbles bounce about above the water?
No, I've never in my life leave low. See no diver, no wife, whoa, way beneath no ocean in no kingdom of no sea while no bubbles bounce about above no water.
Well, if you're looking while they're kissing, you'll recognize the sight of a diver that must be doing something right. Way beneath the ocean in the kingdom of the sea while the bubbles bounce about above the water.
Shirley, why do you say ever, ever, and life leave low? And diver, and when you say white, you say we won't.
Why not say ever, and life leave low? And diver, and white we won't.
Well, why are they kissing beneath the ocean? In what kingdom of the sea? And why are bubbles bouncing about above the water?
Well, beneath the ocean's private, and the kingdom is the sea. And kissing down there's gonna bounce up bubbles naturally. So when you see the bubbles bouncing, you recognize the sight of a diver must be doing something right. Way beneath the ocean in the kingdom of the sea while the bubbles bounce about above the water. Did you ever in your life leave low? See a diver kiss his wife, whoa, way beneath the ocean in the kingdom of the sea while the bubbles bounce about above the water. And did you ever see a diver kiss his wife while the bubbles bounce about above the water?
Never see.
And did you ever see a diver in your life leave low? Kiss his wife, whoa, did you ever?
Around, but never ever.
Did you ever?
No, I'm afraid I haven't seen a diver kiss his wife.
Ever in your life see a diver kiss his wife while the bubbles bounce about above the water?
No, that bubbles bounce.
Did you ever? Did you ever? And did you ever?
No, I've never.
No, never?
Never.
Did you ever?
Never.
Don't say no, never.
Never.
Now, ever in your life see a diver kiss his wife? Did you ever in your life?
No.
03444991000. That's Shirley Ellis. Ever see a diver kiss his wife and the bubbles bounce along? I don't know what it's called. It's just brilliant. I love a bit of Shirley Ellis. 03444991000 is the number to call. We're talking about all sorts of stuff, whether you dob on a neighbour, whether you've ever done that, and the kind of thought process that went into it, or whether you've ever been ratted out by someone who lived near you. That's another story I'd like to hear. 03444991000. We're also going to be talking about cosmic ordering, or what do they call it here? Let me see. They call it... let me find it. They call it the law of attraction. And there are 6 ways, apparently, to change your life for the better in the future. Obviously, we're going to read it out before the end because we all need a little bit of a change now and again. Hey, Alan, thanks for ringing.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you, Alan from Stoke?
I'm all right, love.
What have you got for me today?
Well, I was just listening to... I just got in my unit, actually, when I'd switched the radio on, and you were talking to that chap about police wanting people, graphs on people about drugs and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, I used to live in an area where they used to use cannabis and all sorts of rubbishy drugs at one time, you know.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's a plant. It's been here for years and years and years, and people use it for medicinal purposes. People use it for MS and all those things. You know, if they want to use it, it's up to them.
I think for a lot of people, the attitude towards it's relaxed a lot.
Yeah, I think if they legalised it, like they have done abroad, you know, there wouldn't be any of this problem. You know, all right, the Class A drugs, forget them. But, you know, cannabis, it's just basically for chilling people out and making them, you know, like MS people, it helps them.
Yeah.
So I believe anyway. I mean, my mother-in-law, she used it for multiple sclerosis because she has got that.
Right. And she found it helpful?
Yeah, she found it very helpful. All right, she's in a home now. She's got dementia now. So it's, you know, she remembers things, and then, you know, it did help her. but it helped her with the walking, you know, and then she lost the power of in her legs. But, you know, it did help her to get her around, you know what I mean?
What happened to him legalising it for medical reasons? I thought that poor little lad from the other year, I thought they changed things.
Well, they did change it, didn't they? They were going to change it for that little lad who's got that. I don't know what he's got anyway. But then I heard definitely that they stopped it. Then he couldn't get it. Then he was trying to buy it. You know.
See, what I heard was they made it harder to come by than it sounds. You know, it sounded like they were about to relax the rules, but actually it was still pretty difficult to get around them.
Yeah, that's right. So at the end of the day, this country, I don't think they know if they're coming or going or being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, another thing.
Go on.
I used to watch Love Thy Neighbour, and I used to love it. But now they won't play it because it's precious. You know, I used to love that programme.
Do they not show it on some of the older sort of channels?
No.
Because I thought the justification was they were supposed to be taking the mickey out of Prejudice.
Well, that's what they were, but they were. I've looked through all the different channels, you know, UK Gold and all them. I've never come across it. I have to go on YouTube if I want it now.
Right. Oh, well, at least you can get it on YouTube. Does it still stand up for you? Because it was a bit old-fashioned for me. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, it stands up for me. I mean, I'm probably like, you know, I like the old things what used to be. I mean, my granddad, I used to be sitting watching it with him, you know, and it'd be great, like, you know. But the old programmes, I think they've still got some things going for them, you know what I mean?
Well, do you know what? I get some of it, but some of it I think is... Here's something controversial. Only Fools and Horses. I'm not crazy about it.
Well, it's just two lads what have been out. They started out with nothing and ended up with a millionaire.
Well, I know what it's about, but I also know it's been on bloody loads, and I think I'm done.
I think I've seen every series what they've done.
Yeah.
You know, it's all right occasionally, but I think they put too much on it, to be honest.
Yeah. I get that too. All right, Alan, where are you off to tonight?
I'm off to do some delivering down to Tesco.
I was going to say, it's not gold bullion then, is it? It's going to be, bread and eggs?
Bread, eggs, whatever else is in the container tonight, yeah. So
all right, well...
I pulled over anyway so I could talk to you.
You're a good one.
How's Ian anyway? Is he okay?
He's not feeling too clever at the moment, but I went to see him today and we had a bit of a laugh, so...
Yeah. Well, give him my regards anyway. Tell him I'll speak to him when he comes back.
I will do. He should be back tomorrow, but we'll see.
Yeah. And one day when I get some chance, I'll come down and see you two at one of these evenings what you have.
Oh, blimey, that sounds like more of a threat than a promise.
Well, it's a promise.
Thanks very much, Alan. Take care on your drive tonight, won't you?
Okay, bye-bye.
Nice to speak to you. 0344 499 1000. Right, so let's work out how we improve our lives for the better. You can give me a ring. That would significantly improve my evening, of course. 0344 499 1000. So this expert has revealed how you can combine science and positive thinking to achieve your goals. Right now, my goal is to have a bathroom that works. These are beta, right? So neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change itself during adulthood. According to Dr. Swart, it is possible to rewire your brain and to change your attitude in order to succeed. She explains that we can train ourselves to become the person we need to be in order to provoke positive change in our lives. Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be bliss? Right, let's get some meditative music, because this is going to be gold. This is going to change our lives forever. Never mind Del and Rodney this time next year will be millionaires. This is going to be the key. Right, let me put in Zen music. Zen meditation music straight away. All right, let's have a bit of this. The first one that comes up. Oh, hang on, it's an advert first. That's not going to make me feel meditative. It's going to make me want to wait to press skip ads. Right, here we go. No, we're not having songs. Hang on. Sorry about this, everyone, but you understand we need to get this right if we're going to harness the powers. Let's try this one. No, this is not right. Hang on, this is not right. Yeah, I've got another YouTube thing playing. I love Curtis Mayfield, but that is not the vibe we're after. This is the vibe we're after. All right, this is how we're going to do it. 2020 lies before us, and we're about to grasp every single opportunity that comes. But also, we're about to create some. Are you ready, everyone? All right, let's do this. According to Dr. Swart, it's possible to rewire your brain, change your attitude in order to succeed. Are you ready to succeed? I know you are. I know you are. She explains we can train ourselves to become the person we need to be in order to provoke positive change in our lives. She follows the concept behind the law of attraction, and that is capital L, capital A. So this is serious business. The belief that positive thinking will lead to good things, while negative thinking will attract negative outcomes, and argues that changing the way we think can have a physical impact on our lives. Sounds a lot like wishing, but let's crack on and see if it works. These 6 principles allow us to unlock what Dr. Swart calls the source, capital T, capital S, or the full potential of the brain, which she describes as the harmony between the cortex, which is responsible for higher thought process such as speech and decision making, and the limbic system, which deals with emotions, memories, and stimulation. Stop that. 1. Abundance. Here we go. We're calling her Dr. Tara now, which makes it sound more like hokum, but bear with me. Dr. Tara describes abundance as the belief that there is enough of everything to go around. She defines it in relationships with lack, explaining that whether we believe in one or the other will have different consequences on our lives. For instance, those who believe in abundance will develop resilience through tough times thanks to the trust that things will get better. She believes they also exude generosity, which is infectious and leads to human connections. On the other hand, those who operate on the basis of lack will be primarily motivated by fear and tend to think in negatives. This is why she believes in adopting an abundant mindset is an essential part of the law of attraction. Okay, so you've got to believe that things will sort themselves out in time and that there will be an equilibrium that will be achieved, even if it's just a matter of time. Dr. Tara explains that often people stick to relationships, jobs, or other situations they're not happy with because they fear being alone or they fear change as a whole. The reasoning is that fear is a strong emotion that occupies a large part of our brain and triggers, through bad memories of past failures, red flags telling us we need to run from risk, run from change. But a person with an abundant mindset is therefore more likely to be a risk taker. Okay, so the sort of person who goes, do you know what, it'll be all right. Whatever happens, it'll be all right. 2. Manifestation. Dr. Tara admits the concept of manifesting success through positive thinking has often been dismissed by other members of the scientific community. And she concedes that thinking of a good thing doesn't necessarily mean that will make it happen. Okay, so the cosmic ordering thing might be a load of balls. Let's read on. Instead, she explains that the manifestation is all about constantly trying to make our dream happen, however big it might be. It requires that we are true to what we really want and focus on this instead of chasing other goals. For instance, I'm glad there's a for instance because this sounds quite wishy-washy to me, but that might be just my dried up old heart. For instance, one could work hard to obtain a promotion and reach financial stability when the dream was really to retrain. So manifestation is about channeling your ultimate goal in everything you do. Scientifically speaking, manifestation works by literally breathing what you want. It's focusing all your senses on imagining it and visualizing it, what it looks, feels, smells and tastes like. So you might want to manifest a donut. Mine's a jam one. This, Dr. Tara explains, makes the dream more tangible in our brain, therefore more attainable. It also requires to slowly build the mindset and skills necessary to making the leap. God, we're only on 3. Hang on a minute. Let's just pause in the Zen moment and just have a moment of reality. Let's have. Hello, John in Warrington.
Hello, Kath. How are you?
What happened?
Basically, I'm just asking if I can have a little bit of a song played. It was 10 years ago today that my grandma died, and it was a favourite song.
I'm sorry.
If you can play a little bit of it for me.
What is it?
Peter Sarstedt, Where Do You Go To, My Lovely?
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Do you know what? As it's you and as I'm on with Todd and as it's your gran, Let's find that. Let me just turn the Zen music off because that's not going to help. See, she liked that song. I find that song a little bit creepy, but that's, again, I've got a hard heart. It's all. Do you know what it sounds like? It sounds like a French song that's been translated. You've got that kind of kind of vibe to it. Let's have a go. I will not rain on your parade any further. I'll just keep quiet.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Oh, look at him with his moustache. He don't mind, does he? Right, here we go. Hang on, got an advert. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Skip. Oh, please. Now.
It's hard to find an original talent, but here is one, a man who is writing and singing some of the best songs around at the moment. With his latest, Where Do You Go To, My Lovely? Peter Sarstedt.
You talk like Marlene and Dietrich, and you dance like Zizi Jamais. Your clothes are all made by Balmain, and there's diamonds and pearls in your hair. Yes, there are. And you live in a fancy apartment off the boulevard Saint-Michel, where you keep your Rolling Stones records and a friend of Sacha Distel. Oh, yes, you do. But where do you go to, my lovely, when you're alone in your bed? Oh, won't you tell me the thoughts that surround you? I want to look inside your head. Yes, I do. Well, I've seen all your qualifications that you got from the Sorbonne, and the painting you stole from Picasso. Your loveliness goes on and on, oh yes it does. And when you go on your summer vacation, you go to Juan-les-Pins, with your carefully designed topless swimsuit. You get an even suntan on your back and on your legs. And when the snow falls, you're found in St. Moritz with the others of the jet set. And you sip your Napoleon brandy, but you never get your lips wet. No, you don't. But where do you go to, my lovely, when you're alone in your bed? Oh, won't you tell me the thoughts that surround you? I want to look inside your head. Yes, I do.
Is this doing the trick, John?
Beautiful.
Tell me about your gran, then.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, she was brilliant. She brought me up most of my life, to be honest. I lived with her. I had a bit of a troubled kid when I was younger, so I ended up with my gran from about 14. So she was like my gran and my mum.
Oh, bless her.
But yeah, I don't have any sad memories of her. They're all good.
Good. And obviously she was a sophisticated woman. That's a hell of a song.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but she loved the music. She definitely did.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing her with us just for a few minutes.
No problem. And before I go, Kath, you're a Manchester girl. Are you red or blue?
I'm a what?
Are you red or blue or none?
Well, I mean, I'm not really bothered about football, but I'm in a red family.
Oh, good. That'll do then. That's made it even better.
Thanks very much, John.
All right.
Take care of yourself. No. Bye-bye. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We had a couple of calls there, and it seems to have dropped off. Jamie, why don't you ring up? Jamie's saying, can someone funny or female or both please ring Talk Radio, or is it a middle-aged man special? I don't know. It's whoever rings up, for God's sake. 0344 499 1000. It's like I'm turning women away or something. It's whoever rings up. First come, first served. That's the way it works. You can give us a shout, 0344 499 1000. I will not be checking you for one thing or the other before you come on. You can text 87222, start your text with the word talk, and that'll cost you 25p plus your standard network charge. Or you can tweet at Talk Radio or at Flipping Kath. Damien's up next, but if you want to be in the show as well, the time is now. We've got like 30 odd minutes, and Jamie is clearly not happy with the standard at this point.
Late Night with Katherine Boyle on Talk Radio.
0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Hello, Damien.
Hello, Katherine. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. What you got?
Good. Well, positive thinking, cosmic ordering, the law of attraction.
What do you reckon?
It might be controversial, but haven't we been doing this for thousands of years? As in prayer?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've only just caught the last hour of the show, so I don't know if anybody else has mentioned it.
No one suggested it, but yeah, prayer, wishing, meditation. Yeah. Is it not the same thing?
Well, pretty much, isn't it? I think we've packaged it into a very nice sort of 21st century marketable brand, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it helps, though? I mean, people who believe in it...
Yeah, I absolutely do believe in it. It's just positive thinking, isn't it? It's what you think about, you bring about. You focus on positive things, they're more likely to happen. If you focus on negative things, they're more likely to happen.
With prayer, though, it's less of a specific thing, though, isn't it? Generally, there is a certain amount of acceptance that someone knows better up above when you pray, isn't there?
I'm not sure. I'm not religious, so I'm not completely sure. I'm not.
See, this seems more prescriptive. With prayer, I think there tends to be if you see fit to give me this, I would like, and it doesn't tend to be, praying for a promotion. It would be, I think people are a bit more humble in prayer, generally. I don't know. I'm not God. I've not received I've not had a look at his inbox lately, but I would imagine that prayer
I would imagine it's quite interesting.
Yeah, oh God, can you, you'd be like, not you again, flipping it.
Yeah, spam folder that, yeah.
Wonder if there's people he's muted.
Constantly, I would think. I think he muted me a long time ago, but that's fine. I'm doing all right.
I think, there's something to be said for concentrating your mind, and whether that's meditation or prayer, but just thinking, right, what do I really want, and what do I really need in the next few months? I don't know. I'm not so much for that. Oh, where's he gone? Disappeared. What the hell is going on? 0344 499 1000, and we're trying to get him back. I don't know whether maybe he'd said his piece and disappeared, or our phone line's playing. He's trying to stop us from touching the divine. Let's check. Hey, Damien, where did you go?
Oh my goodness, he heard me, didn't he?
It was so creepy. Someone decided that we were getting too close to the truth.
Oh my goodness me, that was too close for comfort.
So how do you kind of how do you go in for this stuff, or do you go in for this stuff at all?
Like anything, I observe it. I also step back from it. I'm aware of it, but I don't prescribe to anything particular. I don't dive into anything too deeply.
Do you set yourself goals?
I think we all set ourselves goals, don't we? We do. Whether we deliberately do it or not, we all have intentions that we, and goals. I mean, even if that's just getting up in the morning and getting dressed, everything's a goal, really, isn't it? To achieve something in the day. I think there's a lot of people now, they need this sort of thing. It's almost like they feel they need it, the same with the mindfulness movement and everything.
Yeah.
It's just become almost, it's almost like a prescription, a little bit like a drug.
I can only speak for myself, and I think that in a world that feels like it, where you feel pretty powerless, it helps to believe there is something you can control.
There you go, control. In a world where we have very little control over anything at all.
Tell you what I found in my life, though. Every time I've aimed for something or gone out of my way and written letters and can I do this, can I do that, never happened. And yet I look back on where I've come from, and I realised that actually I can see a definite reason for having gone through each phase, and it's led me to this point. And maybe it was arrogant of me to think that I needed to plan. And actually, what you actually need to do is see opportunities and say yes to things.
Yeah, definitely. I don't like this idea of you just wish for something and then just sit back and do nothing and expect it to happen. I think there's you've got to partake in it. You've got to, if you really want to achieve something, you've got to put your heart and your soul and your mind into it. And if it's the right thing, it probably will happen. And if it's not, then
there's the if, right? There's the if.
Yeah.
And some people will not let it go, even if it's quite clear that it's not for them.
Absolutely, yes. But if it doesn't happen, if something doesn't happen, there's probably a reason for it. And just to accept that, because otherwise you could drive yourself crazy, couldn't you, wishing for things that never come true.
Oh, there are so many people in this world who believe that they are destined for something else and they can't believe it's not happened for them yet and it's not fair. Meanwhile, I worry that, other things are slipping past them because they've discounted them.
It's very easy to become so focused on one thing. I heard this story about an Olympic athlete, actually, who strived all of these years to receive a gold medal, and then when they did that, they'd got no other goals.
Yeah.
And they became so despondent and they had nothing else left to achieve. So it kind of, it sort of spoilt the fact that they've achieved such success because they've had no other goals left.
Well, also, look at people who've achieved, for example, your Britney Spears, your Robbie Williams, people that achieve everything they set out to achieve at an early age. Very rare, isn't it, for them to not go off the rails as a result? Because what else is there to do? Once you've got all the things you wanted, once you've got the money and the fame and the opportunity to go wherever you want to in the world, what have you got to strive for?
Absolutely. Money gives them a lot of choices, but there's only so many choices in a life that you can make. Before you start making the wrong ones.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. I mean, I have listened to the audiobook of The Secret and other books by Rhonda Byrne, The Law of Attraction and all of this. And it's interesting, but it's all the same.
Really?
It's all the same. When you boil it down, it's just positive thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, and does that mean that you... Because people think with cosmic ordering, you think of something very specific, and if you want it hard enough, it will transpire. But what this woman seems to be saying, and it is a little bit, I'm going to have to give it a bit more thought, but what she seems to be saying is that you need to concentrate on what's important and recognise things when they happen.
Okay, yeah, I see that. It's like anything though. If you're going to buy a new car and it just happens to be a red car, you'll see red cars for the next however many weeks until you get yours,
right?
Because you're aware of it. Because it's suddenly come to the fore of your consciousness.
Yeah.
Rather than being in the back of your mind, it's jumped a priority in the queue, if you like. So you're more aware of it, and they're more likely
to see
take advantage of it if it comes up.
I guess. All right, Damien. Well, thanks for ringing. It's nice to speak to you.
And you.
Take care. This is feeling like one of those end of the night at the pub conversations, isn't it? Hello, Mark.
Hey, Kath.
Hey, what you got?
I'm a bit late, but I want to talk about family.
Good, let's have it.
Because I was catching up on your show last week, and on Friday I was listening to Thursday's show, and it was all about family. And I wish I'd sort of called in, and then I was going to call in on Friday, but I bottled it.
That's all right, it's never too late.
So I just thought I was up listening to the show just now, and I thought I'd just call in about family, because I was listening to lots of different sort of stories on Thursday, and I thought I'd add my 2 pence worth. It's quite an interesting story, if you like.
Go on.
A bit of a mix, sort of two halves. On the one side, really, really close, lots of love, and quite a unique thing. And then another part of it, a sort of a disowning aspect. So the language is quite harsh, but I'll just dive straight in. A little over 6 years ago, my parents killed themselves.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Well, no, don't be sorry. It's the only way of starting a conversation. It was planned. My dad was really, really ill, cancer, 7 years, and so him and my mum basically chose when they were going to go. So, self-euthanization, I suppose.
Okay.
I knew about it for a long, long time, and I was involved in sort of preparations, for end of life, and getting their affairs in order. I wasn't there, the actual moment when it came, but I was there in the last sort of few days when my dad, took a real bad turn. And so, having sort of known for so many years that this was coming, my dad had cancer for about 7 years before he died. I was really, really well sort of prepared for it, and also, towards the end, his health sort of deteriorated, so you knew it was coming. And I heard a lot of stories of, not just on the show, but sort of, in my life from people that I know who have parents generally, who sort of have this kind of slow decline and almost heartbreaking stories, really. Listening to Fake Sheila as well on Friday, talking about her situation. And even though it's quite shocking, my story, and when I tell people that, I get a reaction you just sort of gave me, I actually felt really lucky in a way and sort of quite blessed. I never really had to go through years and years of, watching someone that I loved in a state of sort of, let's just say in a state where their sort of quality of life was that sort of diminished. And so that's kind of the one side of it. And I love my parents. They were great parents, and we talked sort of every day for the last few years. Very, very close. It was a big, big miss when they went. But I never actually needed to grieve for them after they went, because I'd done all of that in preparation in advance, in a sort of way, because I knew what was coming. So when the moment of departure actually came, I was very, calm about it, very, like I say, blessed in a weird sort of way, and sort of gave them my blessing kind of on their way. So that's kind of one part of the story, if you like.
That's incredible. Can I ask you a few questions about that?
Yeah, sure.
I find it really interesting. Of course, everyone's reaction when you say you lost both your parents is, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And cancer's an awful, awful disease. And God, it does terrible things to people. But from what you're saying, the fact that they'd chosen the time and sort of method of their passing, and then they were doing it on their terms while they were still able to make decisions, that was a huge comfort.
Yeah. Well, the cancer that my dad had, it was a rare form of lymphoma.
Right.
So he had his faculties really kind of right up until the last week. He had a sort of debilitation, if you like. Physically, he would get sort of tired and like that, but it wasn't, there were many different types of cancers. This wasn't one that, made him sort of bedridden for years and years. So their decision was, as long as there was a quality of life, then they would continue. And as soon as that stopped, then they would go.
And they didn't want to carry on without each other, by the sounds of things.
Well, this is the thing. One of the things that people sort of ask me is, well, you talk about your dad, and your dad goes, what about your mum? Why did she, how do you feel about her doing that? Why didn't she stick around? I've got kids, and they were quite young at the time. Was it selfish of her to go? Why didn't she want to stay around and see her grandkids sort of growing up? She was sort of so devoted and so in love with him that she literally couldn't see her life without him. You hear that phrase, don't you? You hear that phrase, being sort of bandied around. Oh, I could never live without him. I don't know what I would do, you know, without my significant other. Well, she literally couldn't, to the point where she was prepared to go with him. And while she wasn't in brilliant health herself, you know, she wasn't, you know, she could have continued, but she didn't want to. Yeah, so they chose the time, and they wanted to be at home. Yeah, and they were at home. And he, in the sort of last week, when it got, you know, he kind of like fell off the cliff, if you like, in terms of the physical side of it. He was taken to hospital, and then I went to visit, and then when we knew that, you know, that was it, then we discharged him and took him home. And I spent the last sort of few days at home with them. And then I, you know, because of the legal situation in this country, I left the day before, knowing what was coming, but just, you know, so that I wasn't there and there couldn't be any sort of implication or confusion about involvement. You know, I sort of left. But
is that the way you would want it?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, right, is I got to say everything I wanted to say to them before they went. I was not in a position where I, you know, having my parents die, and having to, you know, go through the rest of my life thinking, well, what if I'd only just said this, or if I'd only just said that, or, you know, I never got a chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had that opportunity to say all of those things, everything you could possibly have wanted to say. I mean, closure is a sort of an easy word to kind of bundle it all up in, but it really is that. And I have not cried since they died, and that was over 6 years ago. Not because I don't miss them, but just because, you know, I said goodbye, and I did all my grieving, you know, in a time when they were sort of alive, in a weird way, over a long period of time. So when it actually came down to it, although it was a shock because it happened suddenly, relatively, you know, within about 4 or 5 days, his sort of physical condition, you know, kind of dropped off. And although it was sudden, it wasn't, you know, I was prepared for it, so it wasn't a surprise. Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm happy to answer questions about that, but here's the thing. The other side of the family, I spent my time, those last sort of few days with them, and my sister. And so that's another story. People may sort of find that quite a tight, loving story. I don't know, between me and them.
Well, I mean, you say that you haven't cried since they died, but you've just had me in tears, because I think anyone who's lost anyone, and I've lost too many people recently, and not had a chance to say all those things, that's such a special time. And what a special opportunity to be able to do that, and to know the time that you're going, and to be able to make sure you get all that stuff out, and that they're left in no doubt as to how much they mean to you. That's incredible. Yeah, and when I say I sort of got to say everything I wanted to say, I don't mean in those last few days. I mean in the 7 years previous to that, when he was diagnosed. So yeah, I mean, it's incredibly lucky, very, very blessed. I didn't have to see them suffer for years and years. I didn't have to see, you know, dementia sitting in, or, you know, a nurse, or any of the other sort of really debilitating. There was none of this. I remember being really struck with when my grandma, my first grandma that died, when she was at the tail end of her life, and this was a proud woman who'd been a home help. She'd always been the person administering the care, and then all of a sudden there's people coming in and asking her whether she's been to the toilet or not, and using her first name when she really wouldn't have appreciated it and stuff, and treating her like a baby. And I thought, my God, she would hate this. I'm just hoping that she's not as with it as she would have been, you know, 3-4 months before. I mean, there was a very, very quick decline with her. But it hurt to watch it. It hurt to watch her being treated differently because she was such a dignified woman.
Yeah, and wouldn't we all really? I mean, you know, we would all, not wouldn't we all? We would all, given the opportunity, choose our own time.
Yeah.
If we could do it peacefully.
I think so. And, there are some people with a strong faith who believe it's not their duty to, you know, it's not their right to choose. But I think there's no one listening to this that I don't think that wouldn't be moved by that decision that they made and the fact you made it all together.
I think, yeah, and I think it is their right to choose. So, I mean, just before you, I know that time is like a premium.
I've got plenty of time for you. We'll bunch things together because I want to hear you out, Mark. I appreciate your call.
The flip side, also not the flip side, but there's another angle, right? So, I mean, that is a very sort of loving, moving, you know, amazing sort of story. My parents came to the UK from other countries, so me and my sister were sort of born, you know, the first generation here. But that meant that when we were growing up, I had absolutely no other family over here. So this idea of an extended family of cousins and aunts and, you know, and all this was completely alien to me. I had none of that at all, sort of growing up. So there's another sort of side of family, if you like, which I have absolutely no concept of. Right? I have none of that. So it was just me and my sister. But here's the thing. I have not spoken and will not speak to my sister since the funeral of my parents. And that is because here we go, you know, let's talk about families, right? And how you're born into a family and you don't get to choose, right, who you're born into family with. There isn't really a lot of detail to go into, and it wouldn't be right anyway because it is just one-sided. But to Tracy, she treated them abysmally, in my opinion. My opinion was of her behaviour towards them was terrible, and was lacking in respect for all sorts of reasons. Very historical. It goes a long way back. We had a sort of a unique upbringing. That, like I say, they came to the country from other places. They were hippies. It was a different sort of upbringing.
Right.
I embraced that. My sister did not. I think she resented it. So there was a bit of a backlash. She never really sat very well with them. There was a lot of difficulty with her.
Different personalities then? Didn't blend?
Completely different personalities. You know, I sort of embraced the difference. She found it, I think, sort of quite difficult. And she had a lot of resentment, I think, towards them. And as we sort of got older and, you know, became adults, she obviously went off to live her own life. But I felt that she treated them sort of terribly. Anyway, blah, 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 years go by. Finally, you know, he's sort of dying, and we know this is about to happen. I go and stay with him for a few days. She pitches up and stays as well. So we're all there.
Right.
And she kind of makes a big show of sort of unity and in front of, you know, my dad, and, you know, we're going to kind of reconnect, and you guys are going to go, but, you know, sort of basically go knowing that we're going to be okay, me and her.
And we'll look after each other.
Yeah, we were sort of quite estranged. And then they died. And then sort of something happened between them dying and the funeral, which was only a couple of weeks later. And it just sort of put her whole... And bearing in mind, I'm not going to say this is definitive, but I know you're very sort of mindful of two people's, you know, come at you know, situation from different angles. It's their own story. But my story is, my interpretation, my belief is that the way she acted was unforgivable. And as a result, I have not spoken to her since the funeral, right? It was over 6 years ago.
Right.
And will never speak to her again. And, and as far as I'm concerned, she is also dead to me. And I just thought I would share that story because it's a weird sort of juxtaposition, isn't it? Those two, those two strands of my same family and how I felt towards, my parents and how I felt sort of towards my only other, living relative in this country. But again, I have no sorrow towards that. I wouldn't even say I've had to reconcile it because it's not something that I miss.
So around that time then it feels like you accepted that you weren't part of that kind of family anymore.
Well, certainly not part of her, family. And we were sort of estranged for a long time. We never really sort of got on. And then, once he was sick through those 7 years, we made more of an effort sort of for him, for them. And there were times when we would sort of come together as a family and there was a sort of an element of closeness. But you know what you're saying the other day about when somebody, reveals themselves and to you, and you then just need to make your choice about whether or not you're going to have that around you. You can't change them, you can't, all
That's
of that.
Can you accept that they're different? And can you get around it? Can you still care about them? Can you still manage to incorporate that difference into your life without hurting yourself in some way?
Yeah, and my conclusion to that was no. So I'm not.
Okay.
I haven't, and I'm not, and I won't.
So, do you feel like you're alone in the world now?
Well, I don't feel like I'm alone in the world. And this kind of comes into maybe sort of veering slightly into another area that I hear a lot on the show, right? When people talk about being alone and sort of loneliness, and I am sort of alone in the marital sense. I've got kids, but I'm not with their mum.
Right.
And I've had I have had a partner since then, but I ended that. And I sort of created a life for myself, very much sort of around the children, right? I'm very much sort of a dad.
Yeah.
And outside of that, I've sort of, I've actively kind of reduced my my involvement and contact within the world so that I can be alone as much as possible. And I don't feel lonely, and I don't feel alone. And again, it's something that I sort of hear quite a lot on the radio, and people do talk about loneliness. But I don't feel loneliness. I sort of feel more content when I am in my own company than I am sort of around other people. And it's not to say it's always been like that. I'm in my late 40s, and I, throughout my 20s, had a very, and 30s, worked in a very sociable trade and had a business that sort of basically involved me travelling around quite a lot with people all the time. It's just, as the years have gone by and my experience has gone by, my parents sort of, leaving, I was very sort of close to them.
Mm. Do you think you're protecting yourself now?
No, not protect. Genuinely, it's not that kind of insular sort of protectionism. it's just, I just find sort of people so disappointing most of the time, that I have an easier time without them, without being around them. So even though I am on my own, I don't feel alone or lonely.
It's really fascinating. I mean, whatever works for you. Whatever works for you.
I know, and it really does work for me. And you know, I still have a couple of what I call sort of really close friends who I do see and who, you know, I do speak to a lot.
Good.
And they sort of.
I'm saying good because it reassures me that you are quote unquote normal. Do you know what I mean? But it's none of my business. Whatever works for you works for you.
Well, yeah, I mean normal, but it's most people sort of find it. Most people find it sort of hard to either understand or to accept. You know, when I say those things to them, when I sort of tell the story about my parents, and the reason I'm using Mark is just because, you know, at the time it was quite a unique sort of situation. It got a bit of press coverage, you know, and so I just, you know, wanted to be a little bit fairer to my sister, for example, who's still alive. Hence I'm using my name, Mark. But yeah, it's sometimes it's difficult for people. You know, they'll say to me, "Well, why don't you want to meet someone? You know, why don't you want to do more? Why don't you want to kind of, you know, go and do this, that, and the other? Why do you? Sure, you must sort of feel lonely, or
no, but that's only because they're comparing you to themselves and they're thinking about what they want."
I know. Or what about your mum? You know, why didn't she want to stay around for the kids? Like, aren't you angry at her for that? You know, how could she go? How could she just, you know, leave? You know, she didn't have cancer. Why didn't she want to stay around and see her grandchildren growing up? You know, why doesn't that make you? Doesn't that make you angry?
What's the point? What's the point of being angry about it?
Huh?
What would be the point of being angry about it? Wouldn't bring them back, would it?
No. But I mean, you know, why didn't you talk her out of going? Why didn't you try and, you know, make her stay around for the grandkids? And I did have that conversation with her. It wasn't a very long one, and you know, I had to respect what she wanted. I mean, that's probably my only regret, I guess, in any of it, is that they didn't get to sort of see the kids sort of growing up. Yeah. You know, over the last six and a bit years.
Yeah.
That's my only regret. But the rest of it, I wouldn't change it, you know, for a thing. I feel so lucky that I, you know, have those memories, that I haven't had to see them for years, you know, in pain or, like, you know, in hospice. And that I also, there's nothing I didn't get to say to them. And I think that really is a blessing, you know, in life.
It's an incredible story. Thank you for trusting me with it, Mark. I really appreciate your call tonight.
Well, I mean, it's I mean, it took me a little while to call. It's taken me 2 days to call up, and you know, I was going to call on Friday. I did tweet you about it, and I was going to call you on Friday, and then I bottled it. And then when I sort of saw that Ian wasn't in tonight, I thought, well,
this is it.
Maybe. Huh?
This is it, you thought. Let's do it.
I thought, well, you know, don't know when the next chance will come.
All right. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for telling me, Mark. It's given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Thanks very much. I'm going to have to leave it there because Daryl's waiting to come in. Flipping it. Wow. Thanks for your company over the last few days when I've been on my Todd. I've not felt alone at all. Hopefully, we'll be back in business with Ian tomorrow. In the meantime, look after yourselves, and I'm going to hand you over to Daryl Morris. He's got an absolutely wonderful show for you, have no doubt about that. You take care of yourselves. Good night.
Online, on DAB, and on the Talk Radio app. Talk Radio.